Chapter 719, 285 Converge in Jianghu. President Huang takes action against fraud. One Sun Fuss regularly scheduled group assignment wasn't too difficult, it just required spending time to crunch the data. It was laborious and tested one's patience. Hen Shuyan and Su Yuanjun had delegated this task to a few newcomers. Hen Shuyan monitored the progress, and for this kind of group assignment, it would suffice to simply add his and Su Yuanzhen's names at the end. But he had never expected that the most cumbersome data in the group assignment was all organized by Bai Lian. You're joking? Hen Shuyan's expression darkened. Senior brother Hen, do you think I would joke about such a matter with you? Liang Wuyu shook her head. Hen Shuyan stopped talking. He truly couldn't understand how Bai Lian, who spent every day in the lab doing everything but her actual work, and who was always reading some papers, had found the time to handle such an immense volume of calculations. Bai Lian and Ning Xiao, each of them took at least 2 days of leave every week. Under such circumstances, not only did she handle her own data, but she also helped Tang Ming and Su Jue. Hen Shuyan didn't believe it, but he also knew that most of what Liang Wuyu said was probably true. From the beginning, he knew that the crowd including Tang Ming and Ding Wenyang was led by Bai Lian, who held absolute leadership among the newcomers. Today, both Hen Shuyan and Su Yuanjun meant to give Bai Lian a warning. But who knew that Bai Lian didn't care about the usual marks, and would leave whenever she said she would. Now that she had asked for leave, who would take over this most voluminous set of experimental data? Friday was the day of the regular meeting. Su Yuanzhen's face didn't look great either. After Liang Wuyu went out, she gave Hen Shuyan a glance. Junior brother Hen, it's normal to have some friction in the lab. Go and have a good talk with Bai Lian. Hen Shuyan, of course, wanted to get in touch. He was more anxious than anyone. He was graduating in the first half of next year, and he needed to obtain excellent evaluations, otherwise he would have to delay his graduation. He hadn't previously added Bai Lian's contact information, so he could only ask the other team members for her number and WeChat. He managed to get the number, but the call didn't go through, and there was no response on WeChat. In any case, with Bai Lian's departure, she was utterly unfindable in the lab. Hen Shuyan, who hadn't dealt with this group assignment for weeks, had no choice but to grit his teeth and burn the midnight oil to crunch the data. Shimen District. Bai Lian had already arrived at the hotel where Qiu Shuezheng and the others were staying. Shimen District is a tourist area, situated to the right of Xinjiang District. Qiu Shuezheng was communicating with the person in charge of this event. Having not seen each other for half a year, Jianghu was more composed than before, not as impetuous, gentle yet reserved. Just past this street is Cultural Square, where we were originally slated to rehearse every day. Under the gaze of cameras from 4 nations, the slightest stage fright could affect performance. As for ability, no one was worried. After all, he was the top scholar of the last year's cohort. And when it came to stage fright, the Calligraphy Association, along with Qiu Zhuzheng's side, was even less concerned about that. The hotel beside Cultural Square had been expropriated by the officials to accommodate all the friends who had arrived for this event. Jianzhu took Bai Lian to a lounge in Shangcheng, pulled open a drawer, and handed over a document to Bai Lian. There's also this, from Brother Mao's friend who asked me to give it to you. Bai Lian reached out to take it. This was the order she had asked someone to investigate last time, held by Xiaoqi. Neurotoxins weren't common in the country, and Zhou Jian shouldered all responsibility for Su En's incident. Mao Kun had also checked the source, and the Ren family was indeed uninvolved. But Ren Wengshuan's reaction to the order in Zioki's hands was significant. Bai Lian still had someone look into it. 20 years ago, when the internet wasn't widespread, all transactions happened offline. Backter Street was intricate and complex, making the investigation of relationships troublesome. Bai Lian skimmed the paper and found some good news. They had found the supplier. She lowered her gaze and slowly folded the paper, then slouched lazily in the chair beside her. You came this time. You should be planning to stay for the exams before you leave, right? The examination locations for Jianghu University were fixed. Every year, very few students from other institutions dared to apply to Jianghu University. After the symposium, Jianzhou would also be nearly ready for his postgraduate exams. Speaking of which, Su Wenyao was also taking the exams this year. Yes, Teacher Chiu asked me to prepare for the interviews in Jianghu. Jian just sat opposite her, picked up the Yixing teapot with practiced hands, brewed a cup of tea, and then poured one for Bai Lian as well. Bai Lian reached out to take the teacup and tasted it with a relaxed and leisurely air. To convey culture to foreign guests, each room in the hotel had been equipped with unique Chinese teaware. Jian, under Qiu Zhuzheng's influence in Shangqing, had learned to do it properly and said after drinking a sip, "This tea isn't as good as ours." As soon as Qiu Shuozheng came in, he heard Jian's unabashed comments. He hung his overcoat on the left side, took a seat in the empty spot, and began detailing the developments of Shangqing Calligraphy Association over the past 6 months to Bai Lian. Chapter 720, 285 Converge in Jianghu. President Huang takes action against fraud_2 over the past 6 months. As people clocked in and word of mouth accumulated, the flow of visitors steadily increased, and the scale of the street expanded several times over, sparking various industries' bloom. Jian became a representative figure for the Shangqing Calligraphy Association. Because the college students who came to clock in all liked him, he was cultured and quite handsome. Many people came to Shangqing just for him. How many members does the Calligraphy Association have now? Bai Lian asked. Qiu Shuozheng laughed. Over 100 members now, not including the children who come to learn. There are a lot of people, so I discussed with a few teachers and we increased the thresholds. Bai Lian tapped her fingertips on the lid of her cup, her eyes lowered in thought, and she didn't ask further. Oh, Qiu Shuozheng saw she was deep in thought and didn't disturb her, but suddenly remembered something and he looked towards Jian. I just saw Jian Rong's name on the list. The members of your family should be there too. This kind of official exchange would be a gathering of masters. The Beijing Writers Association and the Jian family would definitely attend. Other than returning to Beijing once in June, Jian spent the past 6 months in Shangqing, focusing on learning and practicing calligraphy, without returning to Beijing. Qiu Shuozheng suggested he take the time to go back and visit his family. "I'll go visit in a couple of days." Jian topped up Qiu Zhuzheng's tea. "Find some time, after the exchange meeting Ocean of Ink and Brush in a couple of days. We at the Shangqing Calligraphy Association will start to get busy," Qiu Shuozheng said leisurely as he drank his tea. Watching the neighboring martial arts gym and clinic flourish, Qiu Shuozheng had been worried. Now he could finally relax. After eating, they returned to Shanghai apartment. Bai Lian sat on the carpet in piano room 302. She didn't have group homework due for the plasma laboratory today, and she had taken the time to try out the composition from Director Jian that was blooming on the trees. Director Jian's composition was too stunning. Her fingers glided across the strings, and she played it 2 or 3 times before stopping. It was no wonder this song was a hit. Both she and Director Jian were serious about it. At the weighty door of the piano room, Jiang Fulai held the door with one hand, papers from his group in his other, listening attentively. Bai Lian knew someone was behind her. After playing for the 3rd time, she slowly reached out to take off her prosthetic nails, turning to look at him with her usual laid-back expression. "I took the day off today." She told Jiang Fulai about the laboratory. Chapter 721, 285 Converge in Jianghu. President Huang takes action against fraud_3. Liang Wuyu whispered to Tang Ming, who, after looking at him, thought for a moment, and then switched places with Liang Wuyu. After they switched, Liang Wuyu put down his utensils and spoke softly. Hen Shuyan only wrote his name and his senior sister's on the paper. It was a common yet unquestionably uncontestable tactic. Bai Lian picked up a thermos from the table, unscrewed the lid, took a sip, and with drooping eyes said, "How did those two manipulate the data?" "They basically copied yours," Liang Wuyu had observed carefully. Unlike the aloof Ning Xiao or the socially anxious Su Jiyue, his tone was slightly disdainful. "Without using your data, they wouldn't be able to calculate it even if given another week." "I see." Bai Lian idly tapped her finger on the thermos, smiling lethargically. "I'll join you for the regular meeting this evening." Not far away. The group led by Gao Yuan. The members were all connected through a network of relationships, interwoven and intricate, and there were also rumors about Bai Lian taking a month's leave due to poor relations with the lab's seniors. Bai Lian had a high reputation at Jianghu University, especially after the welcome party. It wasn't just Bai Lian. Now, Tang Ming's notoriety in the school even exceeded that of Gao Yuan and his group. However, Jiangjing had recently been thrown into chaos by Xian Kong, Yan Lu, and the Drama Academy, with most of the school forum discussing these issues. The response to Bai Lian's group in the laboratory was lukewarm, and the number of mentions they received on the forum recently had finally decreased significantly. Being smart is useless in experiments, Gao Yuan, who was recently quite buoyant, said. No one in the lab dared to exploit someone from the Gao family, and the seniors were always willing to include him in their projects. Don't worry about them, everyone just focus on their work in the lab. The research directions I posted in the group are important. Our group's performance is crucial before the end of the term. When he said the last sentence, Gao Yuan's expression was very serious. The people at the table looked at each other and knew Gao Yuan must have some inside information. And it must be something significant. They finished dinner almost at the same time as Bai Lian's table and left. As they walked behind Bai Lian and Ning Xiao, it was clear to see that Ning Xiao, Ding Wenyang, and others were heading towards the research center, while Bai Lian was going in the direction of the west gate, planning to leave the university. Gao Yuan watched Bai Lian heading off, feeling relieved. After all, Bai Lian still hadn't experienced academia. She was used to being adored by students, unaware of how this circle operates. What use was her intelligence then? I wonder what she's going out for now, one of the boys said, patting Wang Shi on the shoulder with a laugh. Brother, you made the right choice joining our group. Gao Yuan's information is more advanced than the average professor's. This was something Wang Shi finally felt after joining the lab. From October to December, Wang Shi had felt a heavy burden on his chest, unable to breathe. The success of Bai Lian and Ding Wenyang made him anxious, but now he finally felt it dissipating. In the evening, the regular meeting of the plasma laboratory was in the amphitheater of the physics building. Bai Lian had made a special trip back from Ma Institute's laboratory. Lian's sister, over here. Tang Ming saved her a spot in the last row. Sun Fu brought a few doctoral students, not many, but together with the assistants and lab heads, and the new group including Ding Wenyang, there were still over 20 people in the amphitheater. Bai Lian was most familiar with Hen Shuyan. She rarely saw the others, but they were all quite polite in greeting her. Dean Huang, in the middle of the meeting, Huang Yushua entered, and Sun Fu quickly got up. What brings you here? The second disciple of Ma Institute, a top figure in domestic quantum physics, Sun Fu was very respectful towards Dean Huang. Dean Huang, hands clasped behind his back, nodded slightly towards Sun Fu. I've come to listen in. His arrival injected enthusiasm among the present graduate students. The group led by Ding Wenyang was also curious. Only Bai Lian, seated in her place, casually flipped through a paper without looking up. Ding Wenyang was seated in front of her and turned back. The paper Bai Lian was pressing down was still the original. The arrival of Dean Huang livened up the atmosphere. The graduate student meetings were much higher in quality than the bi-weekly sessions of the Tongfeng class, and Ning Xiao and others listened attentively. Soon it was Su Yuanzhen's group's turn. He Shuyan, holding a USB drive, went up after having stayed up for 3 consecutive days with only a few hours of sleep, dark circles under his eyes, disheveled hair, and his spirits dampened by anxiety. Still, his presentation and the data he showcased were quite polished. It seemed to pass muster, but something was lacking. The last slide of the PPT listed the primary authors of the paper, He Shuyan, Su Yuanzhen. Just the two of them. They've really got some nerve. Ding Wenyang couldn't help but become angry, whispering to Liang Wuyu. All the research materials were collected by us, and the data was done by Bai Lian. They just reviewed Bai Lian's data in the last 2 days, and now it's credited to them? They have no shame at all. The rest of the group was equally furious. As he spoke, Ding Wenyang sneaked a glance back. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 722, 286 Outstanding Talents Emerge. First update. _1 Sun Fu looked at the two outstanding team members he had just praised, his face ashen. He first apologized to Dean Huang, then turned his head. The group assignment I gave you was to temper your temperaments. Go back and reflect properly for 2 weeks, and you two don't need to come during this time. Hen Shuyan and Su Yuanzhen's faces instantly turned white. Such incidents actually were not uncommon in the lab, but most people would not make it public. Unexpectedly, Dean Huang happened to visit today. Especially for Hen Shuyan, graduation was imminent, but now it wasn't just a matter of delaying graduation, it was about whether he could graduate smoothly afterwards. In the back row, Ding Wenyang was dumbstruck as he watched everything unfold. Dean Huang's office. When Bai Lian arrived, he was standing by the glass window, holding a lit cigarette in his hand. Sit. Dean Huang flicked the ash off his cigarette and sat down on the sofa beside him, his eyes somber. What are your thoughts on what happened today? Bai Lian took a seat, accepted the teacup handed over by the teaching assistant, and didn't speak. It's a normal occurrence. Where there are people, there are battles for fame and fortune. Dean Huang didn't expect her to say much. You will encounter more situations like this in the future. You had a senior who faced much tougher challenges than you. This path is not easy, especially for a woman. I hope you can stick to your original aspiration and keep moving forward. I know. Bai Lian held her teacup, her gaze looking out of the glass window. The snow had almost melted, leaving only the desolate tree leaves. Her eyes were as deep as still waters, her expression excessively indifferent. This freshly graduated junior sister from the ivory tower. The dean had initially thought she, like her teacher, was not familiar with the ways of the world. The incident today might have been too big a blow for her. But now, looking into her eyes, he suddenly felt that this junior sister was very different from what he had imagined. She seemed to have experienced much. As long as you know, Dean Huang chuckled, standing up, let's go. As for Professor Sun, he might submit a report tomorrow requesting your temporary removal from the team. I'll check out other labs tonight. It was 9 o'clock. He left his office door open and didn't keep Bai Lian for very long. Just a few minutes, he and the teaching assistant saw Bai Lian out. At the staircase, Tang Ming and Ding Wenyang's group were all huddled together, leaning against the edge. These students were full of life, talking softly while waiting for Bai Lian to come out. Chapter 723, 286 Outstanding Talents Emerge. First update, _2 I can't do it, but I have a student who can, Xia Zhuiyu said to Huang Yushua. Although she's only a freshman, she's very diligent, exceptionally talented, and will be a rising star in the field of biology. Just wait a few more years for her. Who? Could anyone be more diligent than you? Coming from a poor family background, Huang Yushua had been in the same high school class as Xia Zhuiyu and was aware of his family's situation. It was hard to get into university back then, and Xia was always studying, even when he was working part-time. He admired someone else's diligence. Yang Lin, my student, Xia Zhuiyu went to boil water. With her tenacity, her name will undoubtedly be found in the future edifices of domestic biology. Huang Yushua sat on the sofa, joking aside. But Xia Ziyu's words surprised him. Initially, he was amazed that a freshman like Bai Lian had caught the eye of her professor, and now Yang Lin had quietly gained Xia Ziyu's favor. Xia Zhuiyu, who had studied biology in D country for 10 years and had only managed to return safely to his homeland after much obstruction abroad with the intervention of academician Ma, was the foundation of the domestic soybean field. His sudden references to my student suggested he was truly satisfied with Yang Lin. Beihong District. When Jian Zhi came to see the Jian family, Jian Zhonghai was negotiating with President Yin, Jian Rong was talking with Bai Shaoqi and Song Min due to Bai Shuk's connection, and she was acquainted with both. Jian Zhou was the only one sitting on the sofa. When he saw Bai Lian's message, he stood up, politely greeted, Grandfather, President Yin, I have to leave early for an errand. Although Jian Zhonghai didn't look highly upon the businessman Bai Qiming, he was quite amiable towards the Yin family firmly established in Jianghu. When he heard Jianzhe's words, he glanced briefly and continued the conversation. He didn't care where Jianzhe was going. Since Jianzhe had gone to Xiangqing to stand in for Jian Rong, there had been little news, and Jian Zhonghai did not pay much attention to him. However, Jianzhe's father wanted to grab his son's ear, but with Jian Zhonghai and President Yin present, he couldn't behave so rudely and only followed Jianzhe a little further. "Where are you off to?" "To meet Sister Lian," Jianzhe showed his father the message on his phone. "She's called me to have late-night food." Sister Lian, always that Sister Lian. "Eat, eat, eat, that's all you think about," his father lamented in disappointment. As for Miss Lu, she's now getting along well with Jian Rong. Her father is a renowned professor in the Chinese department at Beijing University, and he even introduced a professor from the Chinese department of Jianghu University to Jian Rong. Jianzhe recalled and realized Miss Lu was the lady he had been set up with the last time he returned to Beijing. But she seemed to prefer Jian Rong's company. He nodded earnestly. "Then I should congratulate Jian Rong." His father looked at Jianzhe, at a loss for words. As he passed by Shaoqi and the others, Jianzhe greeted them politely too. "Heading out so late?" Bai Shaoqi stood up out of politeness. "There aren't many buses around here." "I've already called a car," replied Jianzhe, showing his phone. After he left, Song Min looked to Bai Shaoqi with a questioning glance, to which Bai Shaoqi replied, "He's Jian Rong's older cousin. He was sent to Xiangqing in her place before. I haven't seen him in a long time." Song Min nodded, not paying much mind, and President Yin also did not make any special arrangements to have Jianzhe driven home. Clearly, the Jian family didn't say much about Jianzhe, who had little to show for himself and didn't warrant any special consideration. 10 o'clock. Jianzhe arrived at 103, at Bai Lian's request, fetching fruits to room 303. He was already familiar with Ji Heng and the others. At this time, Ji Heng, Lance, and Dean Jian were playing mahjong. Jianzhe effortlessly filled Ji Heng's pipe with tobacco. Dean Jian sat to the left of Ji Heng and looked up at Jianzhe. "I heard you're preparing for postgraduate studies at Jianghu University. How's the review going?" "There shouldn't be any major issues." Jianzhe handed the pipe to Ji Heng. He stood straighter and spoke more confidently than when they first met, exuding an air of dignity. He was vastly different from how he was over half a year ago. It had to be said that Bai Lian was quite good at teaching. Dean Jian didn't like the Jian family people, but he found the current Jianzhe quite pleasing. He drew a two of bamboos. "Come to the Culture Bureau tomorrow afternoon, I need your assistance." Jianzhe carried the fruits back to room 303. Zhang Xiais was chatting with Tang Ming and others, saying, "Score of 649, ranked 37th in the class." Jianzhe wasn't familiar with Zhang Xiais. He left one portion of the fruits and took another to Bai Lian in the study, telling her about Dean Jian's request. "Go ahead." Bai Lian's gaze remained on her computer screen as she picked up a strawberry and bit into it leisurely. "You could use the practice." Not surprised by this, Jianzhe glanced at her computer screen, which was filled with complex graphs, not understanding a single axis, which gave him a headache. He excused himself to join Tang Ming and the others outside for barbecue. The next day, Saturday, Ji Heng and Lance went to the Su family to invite Su En for fishing and to check on Su Siki. Bai Lian, thinking of Su Wenyao's upcoming graduate school exams, decided to join Ji Heng to see Su Wenyao. Today, Jiang Fulai didn't accompany her. As the year-end approached, he was busy preparing for the holiday season. Months passed, and Su Siki's face had grown fuller. Chapter 724, Not So Simple Niece, Shocked Members of the Jian Family, Second Update, _1 inch sure. Bai Lian stood up, as Jiang Fulai was almost there. After a moment of thought, she said, "I will refer a doctor to Ren Wanxian for her hands, guaranteed to leave no sequelae." Dong Xiaobai was still immersed in shock and hadn't fully recovered. He responded subconsciously, "No need, my dad has already found her an old doctor." Bai Lian nodded, "All right, then. If there are any issues later on, come to me." She said goodbye to Shenqing and Ji Xiaojun. She didn't stay for dinner. After Bai Lian left, Dong Xiaobai turned to Shenqing, sister-in-law. Bai Lian, she's also learned calligraphy? Are you talking about alien? She writes very well. Shenqing had Bai Lian's calligraphy at home. Not understanding calligraphy, Shenqing went to her room, took out the book that Bai Lian had left behind, where she always left her handwriting after reading. Shenqing flipped to the page with the handwriting. Look. Dong Xiaobai looked down. The script was neat and had a unique style. It was a very special Guang'a style, even he was impressed at first glance. But this is Guang'a style. Dong Xiaobai went to the Calligraphy Association overnight. When the person in charge of brush and ink heard the news, he found Bai Lian's name on the computer, adjusted his glasses and said, Bai Lian, there is such a person, but the president has ordered it personally, and the Cultural Affairs Bureau has also approved it. What? The president personally approved it? Dong Xiaobai calmed down. If both the Cultural Bureau and the president had directly approved it, then this matter might not be what he had imagined. This was indeed very strange. After leaving the Calligraphy Association, Dong Xiaobai was hit by the cold wind and called Mu Yining in a low voice. Yining. I always feel that your niece is not so simple. The next day, early in the morning, Ding Wenyang and Tang Ming were among those who received a notice to suspend their lab visits. They were supposed to go to the plasma laboratory over the weekend. Now that they were free, Ding Wenyang took the opportunity to visit Ning Xiao's house. You got a house as a reward from your uncle for getting into university? Ding Wenyang, struck by the sight of Ning Xiao's ordinary clothes, said, Bro, you really got me good. Houses in the school district of Jianghu are not cheap. Ding Wenyang had always thought Ning Xiao's thrifty family wasn't well off, so he took care of him subtly in everyday life. Ning Xiao, with a slightly gloomy look in his eyes, gave him a glance but didn't reply. After the house visit, Bai Lian happened to return from her morning run. Chapter 725, Not So Simple Niece, Shocked Members of the Jian Family, Second Update, _2 As soon as Jianzhe saw Ning Xiao, he became respectfully solemn. These were all seniors who'd been admitted to Jianghu University. Senior, follow me, there are volunteers with sleeve protectors behind. The dean of the Jian family was the main person in charge of this event. He didn't get along well with the Jian family, but Jianzhe got along well with Bai Lian, and the dean liked what he saw in him. He even introduced Jianzhe to a few people and distributed some tasks. Ding Wenyang followed the staff to the rest area on the left side of the square and fastened the sleeve protectors around his arms. It was only after Bai Lian and Jianzhe had gone out that he tugged at Tang Ming's sleeve and whispered, What kind of high-end event is this, really, can I handle it? I don't know either, Tang Ming adjusted his sleeve protectors, but it should help us gain a lot of points, Ding Wenyang, sometimes he found Tang Ming's intelligence and sensitivity frightening, yet at other times, he thought him to be excessively thick-skinned. The Jian family arrived early. Jian Zhonghai was not accustomed to this weather. He wore a thick coat as he stood at the red carpet entrance of Cultural Square, speaking with Jian Rong. Did you manage to meet with Professor Feng? Professor Feng was indeed the teacher Mr. Liu's daughter had introduced to him. Jian Rong shook his head. A professor from Jianghu University was always busy, which was understandable. Jian Zhonghai wasn't surprised. When your second granduncle arrives, remember to greet him right away. He'll acknowledge you after all. Grandfather, don't worry. As the Jian family was talking, Jianzhe came their way with a girl and volunteers. Jian Rong recognized the girl at the front at a glance. Her face was slightly downcast. She wore a top with pipa sleeves, the cuffs tightly gathered. Below was a white pleated skirt, its base lightly colored, embroidered at the bottom with alternating lines of iridescent gold and blue thread, showcasing an elaborate pattern. On top were red chamomile flowers, with butterflies fluttering amongst them. A pure white cape was draped over her, interwoven with green grapevines. Sensing the gaze, she looked over lazily. Her beauty was fresh, and the cold winter sunlight illuminated her from behind, radiating a certain indescribable charm. Jian Rong was taken aback for a moment. Even though he had only seen her once, he recognized her as a contestant from last year's Lanting Awards in Jianghu, who also seemed to be from Xiangcheng. Jian Rong vaguely remembered that he had drawn a trip to Xiangcheng, but in the end, Jian Zhe went in his place. Upon seeing Jian Zhonghai and his father, Jian Zhe greeted them politely, "Grandfather, father." Jian Zhonghai looked at Jian Zhe and the group of unfamiliar volunteers accompanying him, then withdrew his gaze, not lingering any longer. "I asked you to come with your grandfather, but you didn't," Jian Rong's father whispered in his ear. "Now you're with these kids, later on, just follow me." "Your grandfather came here specifically for your second granduncle, Jian Rong is here too, and you can't be absent." Jian Zhe was just about to speak. Ahead, the person in charge of Cultural Square was leading several smartly dressed individuals their way, followed by a couple of reporters taking photos of the elderly among them, obviously important figures. Jian Zhonghai recognized one of them at first glance and quickly perked up, Professor Feng. Jian Rong also shifted his gaze away from Bai Lian and went to greet Professor Feng. "Professor Feng, you are here today as well?" Professor Feng was a professor from the Chinese Literature Department at Jianghu University. Jian Rong's father, watching the mingling of the group, tugged at Jian Zhe's sleeve. "See that? That's Professor Feng. You should have met him originally. I'm here for the cultural exchange, to broaden my horizons." Professor Feng squinted slightly as he noticed Jian Rong and then recognized him. "Ah, it's you, Jian Rong." Professor Feng could tell at a glance that he wasn't very familiar with Jian Zhonghai and Jian Rong. He stood on the side, waiting for the elderly man to finish his interview. He turned his head and spoke briefly to Jian Rong with little interest. When he turned his head, he saw a girl standing beside Jian Zhe, looking down at her phone. Professor Feng was astonished and quickly called out, "Bai student?" Bai Lian looked up in response. "It really is you, Bai student." Professor Feng's eyes brightened as he walked over, now speaking warmly with Jian Rong. "Bai student, you know Jian Rong and the others?" "Indeed, look." Because Jian Zhe had greeted Jian Zhonghai, they were all standing close to each other. Professor Feng subconsciously thought they knew each other. "I don't know them," Bai Lian shook her head. "Don't know them?" Professor Feng didn't ask further, but instead looked up at Dean Shu, who was still being interviewed, and called out, "Dean, Bai student is here too." Professor Feng was one of Dean Shu's teaching assistants, and Bai Lian had met her in the office before. Bai Lian also recognized Professor Feng and, looking up again, saw Dean Shu declining the reporter's interview and walking over. He was dressed in a dark blue long gown, a wise and gentle elder. His temperament clearly distinguished him from others. "Dean Shu," Bai Lian gripped her phone, also somewhat surprised to see him there. "You're here too?" "Yes, the Cultural Bureau asked me to oversee the event." Seeing Bai Lian, Dean Shu was also pleased, his face much kinder. "Let's go in and talk." Chapter 726, 288. The most untouchable person in Jiangjing _1 Jian Zhe was never a standout among the Jian family's young generation, benefiting only slightly due to being the grandson of Jian Zhonghai. Yet, he still could not compare to Jian Rong. Jian Zhonghai, ever eager for quick success and instant benefit, focused all his attention on Jian Rong. The only time he expressed concern for Jian Zhe was when Jian Rong was chosen by the Beijing Writers Association to go to Xiangcheng, and Jian Zhe actively proposed an exchange. If it weren't for this trip to Jiangjing, where Jian Zhe came to visit him, Jian Zhonghai would have almost forgotten about this grandchild. The dean of the Chinese department at Jianghu University? What's the deal with Jian Zhe? Is he planning to apply for a postgrad at Jianghu University? After Professor Feng went to the restroom, Jian Zhonghai turned to Jian's father beside him. "And who's that girl with him?" With just a few lines of conversation, everyone present could tell the girl was very familiar with Dean Shu. And she introduced Jian Zhe to Dean Shu as well. "He never told me he was applying to Jianghu University." Jian's father had always resented Jian Zhe for not being more ambitious. Watching Jian Zhe's retreating back, he had not processed the information. That girl. She must be the one he often mentions. The first day was the opening ceremony, where calligraphers from all corners of the country gathered in Jiangjing. waiting for the grand event. Some were also hoping to seize the opportunity to show off their talents and become overnight sensations. It was quite lively. Meanwhile, at the Mu family, Mu Yining had her assistant Wang arrange for a time slot early in the morning. She had learned from Dong Xiaobai the day before that Bai Lian was attending the four-nation exchange event and felt uneasy. This was a national event, after all. I've never heard of Miss Bai being proficient in Liang-style calligraphy. The building butler furrowed his brows. He only knew that Bai Lian's academic achievements were impressive, superior even to those of the past. Mu Chen, the old master, will also be present, with media and people from other countries in attendance. Are they really allowing Miss Bai to perform? I don't know. Mu Yining made a call to Ji Xiaojun. Ji Xiaojun was also unaware of this. You mean alien? She has been busy with lab work recently. Lab work? Mu Yining paused for a moment, then hung up the phone. Miss Bai went to the lab this early? The building butler was startled, then remembered something. I heard from the son-in-law before that Miss Ren practices calligraphy every day, and she is personally coached by people from the Calligraphy Association and Old Master Dong. Chapter 727, 288. The most untouchable person in Jiangjing 2. He flipped back to the group of socialites in Jiangjing. Above was news about tonight's gathering, to which Ren Wanxian replied that she'd be there. Then she put away her phone. Dusk. Shanghai apartment was still bustling. Tang Ming, Ning Xiao, and Ding Wenyang had volunteered outside all day, seen a lot, and were dining at 103 in the evening. Meanwhile, Bai Lian had returned to 303 for a bit before heading off to Sun Qian's banquet. Beneath the glittering lights of the Sijing Club, Kong Wei squatted down at the bottom of the stairs with a gift, speaking to Yu Si-min, should we even be here? Yu Si-min's family was better off than Kong Weiss, but she had only heard of the Sijing Club. She had never been inside and had also hesitated, as she heard it hosted the real top-tier rich second generations of Jiangjing. I don't know, the address for Sun Qian's birthday party is here. Let's wait for Lian to arrive and then follow her in. Plus, I can get her to help circle out some content for the final exams. Although Bai Lian was not often seen in room 407, both Kong Wei and Sun Qian seemed to rely on her, intentionally or not. Before long, Bai Lian arrived with a computer and gifts in tow. Yu Si-min and Kong Wei finally felt like they found their backbone and followed close behind Bai Lian. The hostesses at the entrance of Sijing Club wore fur-trimmed kipayos, security staff were in suits and leather shoes, the female attendants were beautiful, and the male ones handsome. They all took notice of the trio as they entered. The lobby supervisor, who had been giving instructions, perked up at the sight. He quickly came over to lead the way for Bai Lian and her party. Do you need me to carry something for you? The lobby manager, along with the rest of the staff at the Sijing Club, remembered Bai Lian's face very clearly from the summer holidays. Carrying a small gift bag in her computer, Bai Lian walked unhurriedly. No need. It's a bit cramped over there, you see, said the lobby manager respectfully after checking the private room and pressing the elevator button to the furthest right. He inquired, would you like to change to the VIP room on the top floor? Bai Lian continued to shake her head. Behind her, the staff were also very polite to Yu Si-min and Kong Wei, warm and thorough. Upon reaching the private room, Sun Qian came out to greet them. Seeing the manager, she was also taken aback, greeting him politely, Manager Ku, hello. After sending Manager Ku off, Sun Qian expressed her surprise. Why did Manager Ku send you over? Kong Wei didn't know who Manager Ku was and merely handed her gift to Sun Qian. The service attitude here is really good. The private room was resplendent, with small groups gathered and the music never ceasing. Chapter 728, 288. The most untouchable person in Jiangjing 3. Yes, even students at Jiang University are afraid of failing a class. Sun Qian coldly asked Kong Wei to send it to her. At that moment, someone pushed open the door of the private room again. This time, it was a young woman who pushed open the door, wearing a beige cheongsam and a black coat over it. As soon as she entered, the young masters and misses present were taken aback, then all stood up. Even Sun Qian, who was sitting next to Bai Lian and others, stood up and walked to the door. Second miss. Su Genie glanced indifferently around the room, her gaze pausing slightly on Bai Lian. The young woman's traditional clothing and overly delicate face caught her attention for a moment, but just for a moment. I was upstairs just now and heard your brother mention that it's your birthday today, so I specially came to congratulate you. Su Genie handed the gift she was holding to Sun Qian. Thank you, second miss, Sun Qian replied with great respect. Su Genie had little to talk about with the group downstairs, so after handing the gift to Sun Qian, she left. After she left, some of the socialites and young masters let out a sigh of relief and started discussing quietly. Ren Wanxian also lowered her voice to inquire, that second miss is Su Genie, the Sun family's second young miss. In our circle, you can offend anyone but not her, a male student beside Ren Wanxian explained. Is that so? Ren Wanxian withdrew her gaze in a trance. She had thought she was already at the top of the social circle. I've never heard of her before. She doesn't play around with us, someone shrugged. That's Su Nanjing's biological cousin, the girl whom Mrs. Su likes the most. The man she just mentioned is Sun Qian's brother, Sun Feng. Those who play with her are from Su Nanjing's crowd, the real power players. We are just here to while away the time. In room 407, both Sun Qian and Bai Lian were study fanatics. After Bai Lian outlined the key points of complex functions, Sun Qian sat next to her, scrutinizing them intently. Kong Wei and Yu Simin were laughing and playing pool on the side. Kong Wei didn't quite get it, so Yu Simin taught her. They were laughing and playing, unconcerned with the stares from others. Today was Sun Qian's birthday, and realizing she wasn't quite comfortable with the setting either, Bai Lian kept her laptop on her lap without leaving early. She pointed at the screen, drawing the material diagrams Ning Xiao needed. The diagram she was working on was beyond Sun Qian's study range, so after glancing at it, Sun Qian continued with her complex functions. This year's basic physics complex function exam questions were set by a teacher from the math department, who was quite familiar with Bai Lian. Bai Lian helped them to inquire about the key topics. Chapter 729, 289 The old ancestor leading their cause returns. Second update, _1 Bai Lian nodded, saying unhurriedly, right. Mu Yining exchanged glances with Dong Xiaobai, particularly Dong Xiaobai, for whom Bai Lian's answer was unexpected yet reasonable. Though they were surprised, both of them also breathed a sigh of relief. How well have you learned the Liang style? Dong Xiaobai inquired. Bai Lian narrowed her eyes slightly. It's okay. It's okay. Liang style is difficult to learn as it requires great wrist strength. Dong Xiaobai nodded, not surprised that there were only a few in Jianghu who were proficient in Liang style. But it doesn't matter, we have communicated with tomorrow's event staff, you just need to perform normally. As long as Bai Lian knew it, that was enough. Dong Xiaobai completely put his mind at ease, knowing that as long as Bai Lian could do Liang style, and since the main shots tomorrow weren't focused on her, there was no need to worry. After Bai Lian went upstairs, he made a call to Elder Dong. The next day. Cultural Square. Dong Xiaobai kindly brought Ren Wanxian along. Ren Wengshuan's hand was bandaged in plaster, her complexion pale, and Dong Chuan accompanied her. Dong Xiaobai introduced her to a young woman, Wanxian. This is Yejun, whom I've mentioned to you. She is currently the number 1 in Liang style at the Calligraphy Association, personally taught by the former president. Yejun, this is Wanxian, Xiao Chuan's girlfriend. Su Yejun glanced over Ren Wanxian and nodded with a smile. Hello, I'm Su Yejun. Ren Wanxian looked at Su Yejun. In fact, they had met last year in Xiangcheng. But back then, she wasn't important enough to catch Su Yejun's attention, and Su Yejun didn't even remember her. She was now only wondering if Su Yejun had any relation to Su Genie from last night since they shared the same surname. Hello. Su Yejun didn't remember, but Ren Wanxian wouldn't bring it up either. Su Yejun seemed to be in a rush, exchanged hasty greetings, and then left. After Su Yajun had gone, Dong Xiaobai then said to Ren Wanxian, "Surprised that I specifically introduced Miss Su to you? Please tell me." Su Yajun comes from an average background, used to live in the suburbs and now resides in Guangyuan district. But that's not important, Dong Chuan, still looking where Su Yajun had left, explained on behalf of Dong Xiaobai. What's important is her other identity, as a student of the president of the Calligraphy Association. She's young, and without any surprises, she should be the next president of the Calligraphy Association. And the current president of the Calligraphy Association is a trusted confidant of the Qin family's patriarch. The president of the Calligraphy Association practices Liang-style calligraphy and is the sect leader of the Guzheng schools, who first became famous because of the White Robe Journey. Both masters have a special relationship with the Qin family's patriarch. Actually, seeing the trends of the recent years, one knows why Liang style has become so prevalent. It's all pushed by the Qin family from behind. The Qin family is a grand clan with 1,000 years of legacy, numerous family members, leaders in politics, elites in scientific research, magnates in commerce. They have a presence in almost every field. Many people seek connections to join the Calligraphy Association, simply to integrate into this circle. Fawning over elegance is merely incidental. Ren Wanxian seemed to understand but not quite grasp it all. The resting room in the innermost area. Outside the door, 3 black-suited bodyguards stood guard. Inside the resting room, Su Yajun paused her writing, waiting for the ink to dry. Next to her, the president picked up her writing and brought it to the Yuanhua tea house, to show the Qin family patriarch sitting in the middle. The Qin family patriarch was watching Dean Jian make tea, the latter's actions taking him by surprise. "Who did you learn this from?" A white porcelain snowy froth exuding fragrance. "From a young friend." Dean Jian placed the tea set down with a gentle tap 3 times and handed the tea to the Qin family patriarch. "Later on, I'll introduce her to you, you'll surely like her." The two enjoyed their tea, whilst appreciating the calligraphy brought over by the president of the Calligraphy Association. Dean Jian also admired the writing. Yejun's calligraphy skills have improved quite a bit. This piece, if auctioned, would certainly fetch a good price. Su Yajun, being a student of the president of the Calligraphy Association, naturally received strong support from them. With her good looks and great talent, writing mainstream Liang style, she also became a small calligraphy star with many calligraphy fans. Rarely willing to endure the hardships of practice, the patriarch of the Qin family also nodded with a look of appreciation on his face. Although not as good as the ancestors, as a girl naturally with less wrist strength, she has already begun to show her own character. The president of the Calligraphy Association smiled, taking the piece and brought it to Su Yajun. "The old patriarch has a high opinion of you, but you still need to remain humble and continue learning. Let's display this piece at our station in the center to show and let them take pictures." Su Yajun did not show joy but accepted it with respect. "Yes, teacher." After Dean Jian saw off the old patriarch, old who waited outside for him. "It's a pity," as he took the schedule from old Hu's hand. Dean Jian sighed. Su Yajun's age was a bit over the limit. Otherwise, if she were the youth representative this time, I wouldn't have to worry. Chapter 730, 289. The old ancestor leading their cause returns. Second update, _2. He had played mahjong with Ji Heng a couple days ago, probing for information in a roundabout way. But he didn't get any news about Bai Lian and her mastery of the Liang style. "You needn't worry too much," Lao Hu said, choosing his words to comfort. "Miss Bai always has her own way of thinking. Plus, our foreign friends don't understand our characters. At most, it's the fans of the Liang style who might have a few more things to say." Director Jian also considered that Bai Lian was not a person to act impulsively, especially because he had been wondering for a long time whether Bai Lian could use the spear, so could she possibly master the Liang style calligraphy? That's why he didn't reject her when he first saw Bai Lian's name. The immense indoor plaza of Cultural Square. The floor inside the plaza was entirely covered with a red carpet, hosting countless small exhibition stands for calligraphy and paintings, and the central sunken stage area was where the opening ceremony would take place. All around the stage, fresh peonies and plum blossoms were set up, with pink and red peonies blooming in a gorgeous display of cold elegance and nobility. There were journalists packed on both sides. Only 4 rows of seating, 10 in each row, were for foreign guests and VIPs. Of the Beijing Writers Association, only Zhou Wennan had the privilege to sit in the back row to spectate, while other Beijing folks, like the journalists, stood around the perimeter. The Jian family members naturally did the same. But, the Jian family members, with their sharp eyes, spotted a young man sitting next to Zhou Wennan in the back row. "Master," the old man who followed Jian Zhonghai whispered in shock, "how is young Master Jian just sitting there?" The eyes of the Jian family were all fixed on the central exhibition stage. At the old man's mention, they then noticed that the label stuck behind the first seat from the left in the back row bore just 2 characters, Jianzhe. From the beginning with director Xu to the present, the Jian family members were becoming desperately curious to know why this was happening. To be seated here, one must be a master in the field of calligraphy, or someone with significant influence among calligraphers. Jianzhe, he had no relation to any of this, right? Old Master Chen was seated in the center of the first row, with orderly media taking photos and filming the entire event. Bodyguards stood at the sides of the first row. Outside the cordon, police with weapons were maintaining order. With Old Master Chen personally attending today, the number of reporters coming and going was double that of yesterday. Backstage. The green room was heated. Bai Lian took off her overcoat, wearing only a white dress with tea-colored flowers. Chapter 731, 289. The old ancestor leading their cause returns, second update, _3, I checked, and although she's a member of the Shangqing Calligraphy Association, her calligraphy level is 0? The Sino-Japanese-Korean cultural exchange wasn't very popular, and the official live broadcast room only had a few tens of thousands of enthusiasts online, but due to Bai Lian's high popularity last time, many people clicked directly into the stream. Moreover, the gimmick of a calligraphy level of 0 drew in quite a few viewers. Many people present were simultaneously watching the live stream and the event. Mu Yining noticed that the camera was almost always on Bai Lian, with only occasional glimpses of Kai Xian. A few young people studying calligraphy nearby also received this news. Mu Yining paused. She hasn't passed any level tests. Hadn't Bai Lian claimed her calligraphy was decent? Of course, that wasn't the issue now. Mu Yining looked at Dong Xiaobai. Didn't you talk to Minister Kai about this? Why is the camera always on alien? Dong Xiaobai also found it odd. He took out his phone, even more anxious than Mu Yining. Don't worry, I'll ask. If there was a mistake at this conference, the Dong family would be the first to bear the brunt. They might even fade out of this circle in the future. Dong Xiaobai was already regretting why he had introduced Ren Wanxian in the first place. But no one answered Minister Kai's phone calls. Both Dong Xiaobai and Mu Yining were clever people. Seeing that nobody answered Minister Kai's calls, they pretty much understood why. Dong Xiaobai felt a cold sweat on his back. Backstage. Minister Kai turned off his cell phone and tossed it aside. He slowly pulled out a cigarette, speaking leisurely. Keep the cameras on this Bai Lian. Not giving Master Kai the spotlight? The staff member was startled. Minister Kai lit his cigarette, the smoke curling. No need. Well, give Kai Zin's writing a shot after she finishes writing. Our Kai Xian doesn't care about these things. You're really generous, the staff member said earnestly. After all, the Sino-Japanese-Korean cultural exchange was the fastest way to gain fame. Minister Kai flicked the ash from his cigarette, smiling subtly. Dong Xiaobai was so anxious, calling him, inviting him to meals, all to cover up Bai Lian's abilities. He hadn't really done anything except direct the cameras a bit. After all, the representation of the youth was solely taken over by the Dong family, and if there were to be any problems, they would ultimately be traced back to them. He and Dong Xiaobai were rivals. In order to bring Dong Xiaobai down, Minister Kai didn't even save face for Mu Yining this time. There were sacrifices to be made, and they spared no effort. Chapter 732, 290 Spears Break Through the Waves. Holding a pen to test the sharpness _1. The president of the Calligraphy Association knew that this year's female participant was the same one who won first place in last year's Orchid Pavilion Award. Although her calligraphy had not been collected by the association last year, he still remembered the strength and vigor of her handiwork. It hadn't even been more than a year. Seeing her work today, he felt shocked by her calligraphy once again, realizing that in just over a year, her skills had improved by more than just a little bit. The camera had forgotten to switch to Kai Xian. It wasn't until Bai Lian and Kai Xian left the stage that the camera begrudgingly gave Kai Xian a moment of airtime. But by then, the camera's focus had lost its significance, as all attention, both on and off camera, was on Bai Lian. Nobody paid attention to Kai Xian, who shared the stage with her. The front row. Old Master Chen, dressed in a long robe, had been watching the girl the whole time and finally reacted when he saw the two of them leaving the stage, standing up abruptly with a thud. Next to him, Dean Jian hurriedly got to his feet. Old Master Chen. The Jian family was a prestigious literary family, and Dean Jian, having been immersed in the world of calligraphy from a young age, also had the ability to appreciate it. Bai Lian's Liang style had struck him as unique. Nowadays, most people's calligraphy is based purely on copying others, polished from start to finish, rarely reflecting any sense of beauty or artistry. Bai Lian's writing, however, with its rustic heaviness, seemed to come at them with the vigor and skeletal strength of ancient windswept grass. Old Master Chen's gaze still lingered on the left side of the stage, realizing the event had not ended. He felt he had lost his composure and reseated himself, not even turning his head. "Who is that girl?" "She's the child I wanted to introduce to you," said Dean Jian, surprised at Old Master Chen's reaction. He knew Old Master Chen always took great interest in anything related to the Bai family, but he hadn't expected such a strong reaction. Old Master Chen hummed in acknowledgement. The other executives at the pen and ink ocean, sitting beside him, exchanged glances and silently instructed their subordinates to find out more about this girl. Backstage. Having completed her task for the day, Bai Lian left after getting off the stage. She picked up a cloak nearby and walked out the door. At the back door, Jianghu Lai was waiting for her. He had donned a cap and leaned casually against the doorframe, the brim pulled low so only his firm jaw was visible, his pale and slender fingers fiddling absent-mindedly with a cell phone. Only when he heard footsteps did he turn his head slightly. Chapter 733, 290 Spears Pierce Through the Wind and Waves. Holding a pen to test the sharpness _2. But today, she heard something shocking in Dong Xiaobai's tone. I didn't hear Xiao Jun and the others mention it. Dong Xiaobai's reaction meant that Bai Lian hadn't made any mistakes this time, which allowed Mu Yining to breathe a sigh of relief. Then Minister Kai, she narrowed her eyes slightly. The Mu family was keeping a low profile these days, not actively provoking anyone, but not afraid of trouble either. Minister Kai could refuse, but that might prompt Mu Yining to approach someone else. However, after agreeing and then creating obstacles when the program was truly underway, Mu Yining wouldn't let it go just like that. Beside them, Dong Chuan was also very surprised. After having dinner at the Mu family's home last time, he had heard Dong Xiaobai mentioning Bai Lian. At that time, he knew that Bai Lian was an outstanding student at Jianghu University. However, it was only today that he found out she was also skilled in calligraphy. Before he could react, a member of the Calligraphy Association came over. "Mr. Dong, the president is looking for you." "The president?" Dong Xiaobai gathered his thoughts. "He's looking for me at this time?" Despite his confusion, Dong Xiaobai told Mu Yining to take Dong Chuan and Ren Wanxian out for a stroll while he went to the back lounge to meet the president. The lounge. When Dong Xiaobai arrived, the president of the Calligraphy Association was standing respectfully on one side, with Minister Kai and others present. The atmosphere was very quiet. Only an elderly man was sitting in the chair at the center. As soon as Dong Xiaobai entered the lounge, he felt the solemn atmosphere and quickly bowed respectfully. "Greeting, Elder Chen." Elder Chen lifted his eyes to ask for his name and his position in the Calligraphy Association. After a few questions, he finally said, is Bai Lian someone your Dong family recommended? She is also my niece, Dong Xiaobai said. Niece, ah, good, very good. At such a young age to have such strength, to have such, Elder Chen looked at him, his gaze much more amiable. You all have done an excellent job this time. The president of the Calligraphy Association then smiled and spoke up. Not only that, she herself has brought a lot of attention. It's been less than an hour since the event, and the internet is full of her short video clips. We've decided to frame her calligraphy and set up a separate booth for her in the center to attract more young visitors to the exhibition. In the room, everyone realized that the organizers greatly appreciated Bai Lian. Of course, among the younger members of the Calligraphy Association, no one else could compare to her. A group of people were discussing enthusiastically. Chapter 734, 290 spears cut through the wind and waves, holding a pen to test the edge _3. Seeing no sign of Bai Lian, Ding Jian grew impatient and decided to return to Chang'an district with Jian Zhe, heading straight to Shanghai apartment to wait for Bai Lian. After all, the guzheng, the long spear, the Liang-style calligraphy. Ding Jian reflected on the past events. Even the old Mr. Chen did not wait any longer. Together, the two of them exited the main entrance. Outside, the Jian family had been on stakeout for Ding Jian since yesterday, but when Ding Jian came by yesterday, surrounded by a swarm of security guards and reporters, they were kept beyond the security line, unable to speak to Ding Jian for the entire day. They had come early in the morning today to stake out again. Upon catching sight of Ding Jian from afar, Jian Zhonghai hurried excitedly in that direction. Yet, he was still stopped by the security on site. Old sir, please do not cross the security line. That is my brother. Jian Zhonghai gazed in the direction of Jian Zhongyo, his voice rising. Zhongyo, Zhongyo. Ding Jian bent down and got into the car. Without looking back, the security guards, with forced smiles, blocked the other members of the Jian family. There are others who claim to be the long-lost sons and daughters of Ding Jian. Sir, please do not make it difficult for us. Jian Zhonghai was a figure of some standing in Beicheng, and this was the first time he had been treated with such passive aggressiveness. His aged face struggled to remain composed. Beside him, an elderly member of the Jian family squinted at another silhouette entering the car and was slightly stunned. Old master, look, isn't that young Master Jianzhi getting on the car? Today is Monday. The physics department has its routine meeting in the afternoon. Dean Huang sat at the front with his hands resting on the table, palms together, surveying the room. Zhua, what about your project? His gaze settled on Zhua Jinhua. Dean Huang supervised many students, but had only a few direct disciples. Some were assisting at Academician Moss Research Institute. Zhua Jinhua was a quasi-free-range doctoral student. Missing an opportunity in this year's mathematical modeling competition, his performance fell short, and he had not yet been promoted to a professional title. Nor had he been promoted to associate professor. Bai Lian was his future junior sister, and without even thinking, Dean Huang knew how brilliant the path ahead for Bai Lian and her line would be. He had recently heard that Bai Lian and Ning Xiao had been in Academician Moss lab. During this period, Sun Fu let Bai Lian and the others leave the lab, and Dean Huang did not try to persuade Sun Fu otherwise. He was willing to give Zhua Jinhua a chance. Chapter 735, 290 spears tear through the wind and waves. Holding a pen to test the blade _4, Bai Lian pressed the button on her phone to return a call to Dean Huang. I haven't decided which lab specifically, said Dean Huang, who wasn't in a rush. Why don't you directly go to the teacher's lab? He would definitely like that. Dean Huang understood his mentor. Ever since Jianghu he was 6 years old, Academician Ma had wanted to lure him into the lab. It's not the time yet, Bai Lian replied. Dean Huang thought that made sense. Then I'll make a list for you tonight. You can take a look and find one that you think is suitable. He hoped that this time he could find a research center with a better atmosphere for Bai Lian. After hanging up, Bai Lian went downstairs. Ming Dongheng was waiting for her downstairs, and once he confirmed that Bai Lian was going to the restaurant in Cultural Square, he drove straight there. The hotel near Cultural Square was where Zhou Wennan and Qiu Shuozhen were, and with Zhou Wennan being the vice president of the Beijing Calligraphy Association and quite familiar with Bai Lian, he always took special care of the Shanxing Calligraphy Association. As soon as Bai Lian got out of the car, she felt that someone was watching her, secretly taking pictures. But because Ming Dongheng was following her, no one dared to approach. This feeling, after the welcome meeting as well, made her raise an eyebrow. Meanwhile, the Dong family. Old Master Dong didn't go out today and was worried about the exhibition. After Dong Xiaobai and Dong Chuan returned, he got up and asked, "The Kai family didn't pull any tricks, did they?" Well, Dong Xiaobai snapped back to reality, his expression strange. They moved all the cameras to focus on Alien. What? Old Master Dong put his teacup down with a smack, his face darkening. I knew they were up to no good. Dad, don't worry just yet, said Dong Xiaobai with a smile. We've actually benefited from this misfortune. Yining's niece, her calligraphy is even better than Wengshuan's. Her? Old Master Dong was also stunned. She's a student at Jianghu University and she knows calligraphy too? Yeah, Dong Xiaobai said softly, even better than Su Yajun. As Su Yajun was considered a benchmark among female practitioners in the industry, Old Master Dong almost gasped. Why have I never heard her name? Who is her mentor? Dong Chuan, who was casually listening to their conversation, opened WeChat intending to ask Ren Wanxian but then noticed a push notification for a short video. It clearly read, Ink and C Calligraphy Exchange, by Lian. He paused for a moment, then clicked on it. Bai Lian had been a sensation on the internet before. Once the official live stream of the Ink and C event was released, many netizens recognized her. Chapter 736, 291 Godlike by Jian_1 Top comment in the comments section. Snack-eating citizen Little Wang, Bai Lian, member of Shanxing Calligraphy Association calligraphy level, has never participated in grading exams awards won. First prize in the 9th Lan Ting Award. Someone replied below, most people probably have never heard of the Lan Ting Award. Let me educate everyone. The Lan Ting Award occurs once every 3 years, with groupings, and getting a third-place award allows entry into the National Calligraphy Association. There are typically 3 first-place awards and 6 second-place awards. However, last year, which was the 9th Lan Ting Award, there was only 1 first-place award. The usual seeded contestants from the Calligraphy Association, Su Yajun and Xie Jinyuan, ended up with second-place awards, and those previously in the running for second place were moved to third place. For this reason, the 9th Lan Ting Awards Youth Prize became the one with the highest gold content in history. That first-place winner with no competitors is our Bai Lian, flower. Hold on, out of curiosity, I looked it up, and has anyone noticed the name Bai Lian Yu seems familiar? Image, by Jian? Is she also a fan of Yan Lu and the Jian God? How is that possible? The Lan Ting Award was more than 2 months earlier than Gambling with Liquor. Could it be a coincidence? Speaking of which, our Jianghu University app also has a big-name god with the same name. The netizens began to argue over Bai Lian's name used at the Lan Ting Award, but Dong Chuan didn't continue reading. He wasn't well versed in the entertainment industry. Instead, he turned to the elder Mr. Dong, Grandpa. Bai Lian was last year's first prize winner of the Lan Ting Award. The two who were discussing Bai Lian's calligraphy suddenly fell silent. The Dong family had been quite excited when they first heard that Ren Wanxian was studying art, practicing the Liang style. To them, the Liang style was not just the Liang style, it was also a foot in the door. Mastering the Liang style and doing it well is a different concept from winning the Lan Ting Award. This year's Pen and Ink Vast Ocean 4 Nations Exchange, due to Bai Lian's participation, was frighteningly popular. Vice Chairman Liang of the Cultural Bureau hadn't even considered how to increase the buzz. By afternoon, a throng of tourists had surged into the venue. People continued to come and go until the evening. What on earth is going on? Vice Chairman Liang was somewhat perplexed as he ordered stepped-up arrangements, emergency meetings, and intensified promotion of the cultural philosophy for the event. The publicity department quickly traced the source of the whole affair. Vice Chairman, take a look at these videos. After watching the netizens' edits and checking the online popularity, Vice Chairman Liang asked, "Is all this because of her?" Of course, Jianghu University's top entrance exam star this year, the young person from the publicity department had previously scrolled past Bai Lian's long post. Vice Chairman, with her here, I believe this year's pen and ink vast ocean won't lack popularity. Vice Chairman Liang looked down at the list. He felt that the publicity department's statement sounded familiar. Thinking about it more carefully, it seemed that last week, when Dean Jian received the new list, he had also said something similar. At a restaurant near Cultural Square, Qiu Shuozheng and Zhou Wennan had drunk quite a bit. Qiu Shuozheng lived nearby. He walked with his hands clasped behind his back, alongside Zhou Wennan, heading back. Deputy Zhou, you live in Chang'an District. Could you go back with Bai Lian? Zhou Wennan played a crucial role in the success of the Shangqing Calligraphy Association to date. No need, my younger brother will come to pick me up. Zhou Wennan smiled and shook his head. Well then, I'll submit another application for the Shangqing Calligraphy Association. How many applications did you receive today? 986, just today, Qiu Shuozheng marveled, and this was only the first day. In Jianghu, they hadn't felt it yet, but as reported by the Shangqing Calligraphy Association, by this afternoon, the number of people strolling on Wallow Street had exploded, with many out-of-town visitors queuing up at the Calligraphy Association to experience traditional culture. The Shangqing Calligraphy Association was not large, and the Cultural Bureau had sent an additional 20 people to help, already starting to limit the flow of visitors. This was the era of information explosion through viral content. More extravagant than Qiu Shuozheng had imagined. Bai Lian stood by the roadside, waiting to see Zhou Wennan off. From behind, Ming Dongheng silently handed her a black cape. There was no snow these past days, but the temperature in Jianghu remained very low. Qiu Shuozheng rubbed his hands together, blowing out clouds of white breath, still discussing the future direction of the Shangqing Calligraphy Association with Zhou Wennan. Bai Lian had good physical resilience and wasn't as susceptible to the cold as others. She casually draped the black cape over her shoulders. It wasn't made by Ji Heng, with black velvet fabric, a Chinese-style design, broad sleeves on the sides, and thick white fur sewn at the cuffs and collar. Aside from a lifelike red rose on the left side of the collar, there were no other decorations. Simple and elegant. Zhou Wennan's car slowly approached, the speed lowered, and the person in the driver's seat got out, greeting Qiu Shuozheng. His gaze shifted to Bai Lian standing nearby. Bai Lian? Professor Zhou? Bai Lian also felt surprised that Zhou Wenqing was actually Zhou Wennan's brother. Wenqing, you know each other? Zhou Wennan pulled out a cigarette and handed it to Qiu Shuozheng. Then looking at the two, he also realized, right, you are both from Jianghu University. After saying that, he continued to discuss today's matter with Qiu Shuozheng. Zhou Wenqing didn't know much about calligraphy art, so he talked to Bai Lian about the classes she missed at the Tongfeng group today and about the next literature report. Bai Lian lowered her head, meticulously straightened her cloak's sleeve, listened to him finish, then asked, Professor Zhou, how many members are in your lab? Ning Xiao often went to help Zhou Wenqing, and Bai Lian knew Zhou Wenqing was also working on projects at the moment. The Zhou family studied a variety of fields, with some in politics, some researching literature, and some engaged in scientific research. Zhou Wenqing lacked a foundation at Jianghu University. For members, Ning Xiao sometimes comes over to help them, but Ning Xiao is just organizing data. The entire mentor group was in a state of limbo. Zhou Wennan finished chatting with Qiu Shuozheng before getting into the car and leaving. Zhou Wenqing in the car. Zhou Wennan sat in the passenger seat, and after a few words about Bai Lian and the Calligraphy Association, he remembered the main issue. Dad went to Shangqing to inquire for you, but so far there's no news. Zhou Wenqing's hand rested on the steering wheel. No worries, just keep an eye out for me. For the application you submitted, I remember Jianghu University has its allocations, right? Zhou Wennan asked. Green light. Zhou Wenqing started the car. The price is high, output even lower. The quotas are limited each year, all allocated to key projects. The portion allocated to my lab was used up by June this year. It couldn't be helped, this was a metal scarce across the entire world. Zhou Wenqing's main research focus was also this, and with the experiment halted, he had accepted the task of guiding new students assigned by the Physics Institute, to earn a bit of performance pay to support the lab. Jianghu University, Girls' Dormitory 407. After returning, Bai Lian saw Kong Wei sitting at her spot browsing her phone, with Yu Simin's hand on her chair, watching along. And as soon as Bai Lian came back, both their gazes turned towards her, without a word. Bai Lian paused, first looking towards Sun Qian, who lifted her head from the desk, indicating she was clueless. Fine, Bai Lian closed the door of the dormitory behind her, sat down calmly in her chair, set up her computer, and leisurely logged into WeChat to type out a message for Ning Xiao to send the data over. She still had to help Ning Xiao with the graphs. Dean Huang's message also popped up at that time, a list of academic labs with good atmospheres that he had screened. Dean Huang, choose one. Bai Lian's fingertips rested on the mouse, zoomed in for a glance, and didn't see any familiar names before replying frowny face. Professor Zhou also has projects. Can we join his lab? Chapter 737, 292. Are you going back to bomb Jianghu? Second update, _1. Bai Lian was still examining the atomic arrangements at various temperature points in the simulation process when 5-bar graphs unfolded. She plotted the MSD versus time curve, fitted a straight line, and differentiated a ratio to replace the slope, her brows and eyes still. Why do you ask? You two use the same screen name. Do you know each other? Kong Wei asked earnestly, glancing at Bai Lian's computer. At a glance, she saw the bar graphs, the NPT system above with a simulation time of 195 ps written below, followed by the interfacial energy. Her eyes blurred from gazing too hard, and she quickly averted her gaze. Bai Lian tilted her head slightly and said unhurriedly, sort of. Kong Wei had simply blurted out the question on a whim. Not expecting to receive such an answer, and realizing she had interrupted Bai Lian's research, she hopped back to her own desk. She exchanged glances with Yu Simin, sort of. What does that mean? She asked in all sincerity. Sort of know each other? Yu Simin looked at her with frustration. You should have asked whether it's a boy or girl, how old they are this year. Tuesday, early morning. Bai Lian finally returned to the Tongfeng class for lessons. Having taken a week off, it had been a long while since the people in the Tongfeng class had laid eyes on her. It was rare for anyone at Jianghu University to take time off, let alone an entire week. Gao Yuan and others sat in the middle, and as soon as Bai Lian entered, many eyes fell on her. I heard they had a conflict with Professor Sun's lab members, Wang Shi murmured next to a male student, so Professor Sun filed a report to send them away. By the way, Gao Xiao, do you know which lab they're going to be assigned to? Without looking up, Gao Yuan said indifferently, it should be Professor Zhou's lab. Professor Zhou? Hearing this, Wang Shi lowered his head. Although Zhou Wenqing was their advisor, everyone in their group came from some background and knew, if a professor had key projects, the school would not assign them to lead freshmen. The only reason Zhou Wenqing was assigned to teach them was that he didn't have any key projects on hand. Labs like that are always of little value. At least our group has Gao Yuan, who goes straight into Dr. Gao's lab. The male student beside Wang Shi sighed again. Wang Shi had always believed his choice was correct. He felt even more certain that leaving Ding Wenyang's group for Gao Yuan's had been a wise move. Compared to them, what seemed even more bizarre was Zhou Wenqing, who, after 4 hours of lecture that morning, waited for Bai Lian at the door. Bai Lian, carrying her canvas bag, handed her card to Tang Ming, asking him to wait for her in the canteen. Almost all the other students had left, and she remained with Zhou Wenqing in the hallway. By student, you didn't tell Dean Huang you were going to another group? Zhou Wenqing tapped his fingers on the teaching plan he was holding, speaking earnestly. My lab is quite small, with only 4 members, and we don't have a full range of tools. The members had also been lackadaisical lately. Zhou Wenqing felt he couldn't be much help to Bai Lian and the others. It's fine, Bai Lian said after he finished, lifting her chin slightly, her tone unhurried. You just need to not refuse us. Zhou Wenxing had prepared many arguments to tell her that choosing a good lab was important to them, but looking at Bai Lian's expression now, he said helplessly, I want refuse, but my lab's research topic is quite vague, and most of the 4 members are just coasting through for a degree. I'm afraid it'll impact you. Probably only Zhou Wenxing could admit the mediocre quality of his students. He stood there, watching Bai Lian's retreating figure. He couldn't help but pull out his phone and call his assistant, help me apply for more palladium with the higher-ups. Zhou Wenxing decided to make an effort, having newcomers was an excuse. Zhou Wenxing's lab was in the experimental center. Bai Lian and the others headed there straight after lunch. His lab wasn't as large as Sun Fuss, consisting of just one room, where 3 students chatted at the central table. When new students entered, the only female student stood up quickly, tidying her desk. Juniors, welcome. I'm Huyu, and this is the senior brother Lu, and the second senior brother. Huyu, with her short hair and tall figure, was straightforward and efficient. She seemed like the kind of student Zhou Wenxing would take on. Sister Hu, brother Lu, brother Chu. Ding Wenyang and the others greeted obediently. Junior brothers and sisters, add me on WeChat first. Huyu took out her phone for them to scan the QR code. After scanning, she showed them around to the lab equipment. The lab being quite small, one could see everything at a glance. The lab operation manuals are all here, take a look. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me or the senior brother. Tang Ming took a look around and asked Huyu, Sister Hu, so what tasks do we have today? About that, Huyu exchanged a look with the senior brother. Our teacher's research focus is on superconductors, but we don't have a lot of experimental equipment right now, so our lab isn't busy. You can just familiarize yourselves with the topics. There's no need to help us. If you have any questions, just ask. The new lab was inherently small, and with Bai Lian and the others, it became lively. Tang Ming and Ding Wenyang excitedly studied the machinery. Whenever they encountered something they didn't understand, Huyu and the 2 seniors would patiently explain it to them. Bai Lian and Ning Xiao found a spot and sat down to study Ning Xiao's plasma decomposition. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Huyu and a few others were going to attend an academic lecture. Huyu, sitting across from Bai Lian, rested her chin on the table and asked, Do you guys have any favorite desserts? I'll bring a few extra for you during the tea break. The tea breaks at Jianghu University are famous after all. The academic event wasn't exactly in Huyu's field, but the school required attendance, and they were quite willing to go, not so much for the conference, but for the delicious tea break. Upon hearing this, Tang Ming immediately looked up, Taro Xiaobei. A little after 4 o'clock. Huyu returned with Senior Lu and a few others, each holding a paper bag. They placed the fruits and cakes on the long table in the middle and invited the seniors and juniors in the lab to enjoy the afternoon tea. Taro Xiaobei, mousse cake, chocolate cookies. We have it all here, take whatever you fancy, juniors. Bai Lian was sitting in her spot, having already completed the diagram for Ning Xiao. She was somewhat surprised to see the tea snacks Huyu and the others brought back, not expecting them to bring so many. Thank you, senior brothers and sisters. Tang Ming put down the experimental equipment he was working with. Bai Lian also set aside what she was doing and leisurely took a strawberry, taking a bite. Chatting with Huyu, senior sister, did you say there was a shortage of lab equipment? Not exactly lab equipment, Huyu spoke to Bai Lian as it wasn't a secret. Our teacher's research topic is superconductors, and there's a very important metal element in there, palladium. But the annual quota of palladium is limited, and after April, our experiments have hardly progressed. Palladium? Bai Lian finished off the rest of the strawberry. She pulled out a piece of paper from the table and leisurely wiped her hands, deep in thought. Friday afternoon. After hanging out in the lab for a few days, Tang Ming had learned how to operate various pieces of experimental equipment. Like Ning Xiao, he was quite interested in all this. Right now, Senior Lu was discussing previous experimental data with Ning Xiao and Tang Ming, and was not at all secretive. He patiently answered any questions they had. Bai Lian saw they were still busy researching, so she didn't wait for them and left the lab by herself. Downstairs at the research center. Jiang Fulai was waiting for her, seeing her come out in a fleece-lined slant-collared outfit, holding a cloak in her hand, too lazy to put it on herself. "Aren't you cold?" There was heating on in the car. He was just wearing a black sweater, which only made him look even cooler. His left hand resting on the steering wheel, his right hand touching the back of her hand. Good, her hand was warmer than his. The words that were about to come out of his mouth vanished instantly. Chapter 738, 293 is so much like our ancestor. _1 Shanghai apartment style. After Bai Lian sent out a message, she casually took the wilted roses from the vase as Xiaowu and Mao Kuan arrived. Sun Chun didn't come? Bai Lian pulled out a chair to sit down, leaning back, the dry roses carelessly held in her hand as she idly fiddled with the stems. Xiaoqi showed her the recent business project update. She's at the new store in Shimen district. When Sun Chun first came to Jianghu, she liked visiting Bai Lian's place quite often, adding various things to it, but in recent months, she hasn't shown much interest in coming to Shanghai apartment. She also frequented bars less often. Her preference shifted to visiting the business project and occasionally learning some traditional Chinese medicine from Hen Jiwei. A branch office in Shimen district had just opened, and since Xiaoqi and the rest were preoccupied, Sun Chun temporarily ceased her work in Yunshao district and lately had been spending most of her time in Shimen district, to the point that Xiaoqi hardly saw her. Mao Kuan had Xiaowu follow her, so there was no worry about her encountering any danger. Bai Lian perused the summary report that Xiaoqi had given her, most of which she could hardly understand, but she still got a general idea of the business' recent situation. The business project differentiated itself from other herbal medicine stores in that its major source of products, especially the solid foundation paste, was shangcheng. Following Xiaoqi's preemptive purchase of medicinal materials with 2 million last year, most farmers now cultivated medicinal herbs this year. Shangcheng was the best place for herbal cultivation, and solid foundation paste was the business signature product. As long as it remained unaffected, even if Luo family tried to suppress it, they couldn't destroy the business in its infancy. After solidifying its position, Xiaoqi then launched acupuncture for myopia, without Lance's knowledge, instantly becoming a sensation online, even though such popularity was fleeting. But the successive day-end acupuncture for myopia check-in videos that continued to trend ensured ongoing attention. Following this, once the efficacy of the acupuncture for myopia was confirmed, there was no fear of being forgotten by the public. Of course, on top of this foundation, there was another vital factor. The endorser for solid foundation paste was Yen Lu. This was also a crucial factor in breaking into first-tier city markets from the lower-tier ones. How are the negotiations with traditional Chinese medicine university going? Bai Lian looked at Xiaoqi. Dar. Hen is discussing with the professors at the school. Xiaoqi sat opposite Bai Lian, his hand resting on the table. There aren't many doctors willing to intern with us, but some senior professors are very interested in Dr. Hen's acupuncture techniques. This wasn't surprising. After all, medical students preferred to intern at large hospitals, or at least authoritative institutions. The business had only been established for a bit over a year and lacked professional authority in the field. Bai Lian wasn't surprised. The two discussed some issues about the business, and then Bai Lian brought up the problem with the old bill. Have you thought about finding your biological parents? Xiaoqi's expression was exceptionally calm. It doesn't matter anymore. 103, Shenqing came over early in the morning with groceries. The weekends were always bustling at Shanghai apartment. With Jiang Fulai watching Jiang, he solve Olympiad math problems downstairs. Lance was playing Go with Pu Xiaohan. Jianjia had an exam tomorrow, and Ji Heng had specially called him over for dinner. At the moment, he was helping in the kitchen. Chief Chen got off work early today, having just learned a few cooking tricks from Qi Yundai the previous week, and was showing off his skills in the kitchen. Shenqing was examining the blender next to her, surrounded by a variety of fruits, researching how to make juice. When Bai Lian came down, Jiang Fulai was maintaining a cold expression towards Jiang He. Lance and Pu Xiaohan had moved their small table 2 meters away, to keep a distance from the two. Jiang He sat at the dining table, his feet 20 centimeters off the ground, his right hand holding a pen, and his left pressing down a test paper. Jianghu Lai sat beside him, his elbow on the table, slender fingertips holding a phone, his sharp eyes slightly askew, an answer that one knows with a mere glance. Standing beside Jianghe, Bai Lian looked down and saw that he was stuck on the last question about thought expansion in the Olympiad math paper. Jianghe was sensitive to numbers, having mastered elementary math many years ago, and was now tackling middle school Olympiad questions. Even though they were middle school problems, they held little challenge for Jianghu Lai. Asking him to explain middle school level thinking was no different than asking him, what's 1 plus 1? It wasn't just Jianghu Lai. Upon first glance at the question, Bai Lian also intuitively thought of the answer. Bai Lian spoke calmly, Jiang Xiaoniao, wait for your brother Zhang to come back and have him explain it to you. She turned around, leaving Jianghe in Jianghu Lai's care and headed to the kitchen to find Chief Chen. Chief Chen was chop, slicing potatoes into thin strips. Miss Bai, he paused his knife work to greet her when he saw her entering. Bai Lian nodded slightly and reached out to help him wash the vegetables. Can I take another look at Zhou Jian's file from Xiangcheng? Source, web novel. Chapter 739, 293 is so much like our ancestor. _2 The transaction records from Bakhtur Street have come through, listing Zhou Jian as one of the tradespeople. It's hard to account for transactions from over a decade ago, but because Zhou Jian frequently dealt with buyers, he remembers clearly that one of the buyers was Zhou Jian. Zhou Jian? It took Director Chen a while to recall who this person was. Zhou Jian, the man who nearly caused Su En to suffer brain death, Ren Qian's secretary. Zhou Jian's file is at the Xiangcheng branch, said Director Chen, who was also promoted straight to Jiangjing from Xiangcheng. A lot of people in Xiangcheng remembered his kindness. He'll ask them to find the file and scan it over tonight, and find a time for Sun Fei to take you directly to the system at the Yunshao branch. It's not advisable to send internal materials from Xiangcheng over carelessly. Gao family, study room. Gao Yi was talking to Mu Yujun. You haven't seen her yet? Mu Yujun placed the teacup beside him. She hasn't returned to the Mu family, let alone me, even Yining seldom sees her. Forget it, no need to bother, Gao Yi said no more, and took the teacup, lowering his gaze to take a sip of tea. After she had left, Gao Yi turned to Gao Jichen. You know that Professor Ma's laboratory is looking for an undergraduate, right? This could be a breakthrough for Gao Yuan. Dad, don't worry, I'm guiding my cousin in the core research, Gao Jichen said, with his whole team now working for Gao Yuan. This year, both Liang Wuyu and Bai Lian are strong competitors. Which team are they in now? Zhou Wenqing's team, I checked. They are researching superconductors, but after 3 years, the project has made little progress, Gao Jichen informed Gao Yi. Gao Yi slowly set down his teacup. No progress in 3 years. What are they doing with so much scientific research funding every year? Make them deliver results this year, or there's no point in continuing this project. Saturday. The National Graduate Student Entrance Examination begins. This year, Su Wenyao and Jian Zhe are both participating in the big test. Jiangjing doesn't get much rain or snow, but the cold is particularly biting. All the lakes in Jiangjing are frozen. Today, Ji Heng and Director Chen are ice fishing at Jiayu Lake. Pu Shaohan wants to check in at the ancient buildings of Jiangjing. Lian, will you join me? Just wear what you have. They'll take a few shots of your silhouette for my new concept, a collision of ancient and modern. Sister Lu hasn't returned to Jiangjing, otherwise, I could ask her too. Of course, Pu Shaohan's first choice was always Bai Lian. Bai Lian was reading documents in the study room, and without giving it much thought, joined Pu Shaohan. She has never refused people like Pu Shaohan. Chapter 740, 293 is so much like our ancestor. _3 When Bai Zhongyu died, like Bai Li, he left no body behind. Lady Bai erected a cenotaph for him, so the grave was not large, and it was fenced off by people from the tourist area. Bai Lian followed behind Pu Shaohan, looking at the cenotaph here. The previous group had just finished paying homage to Bai Zhongyu. There were many things stuffed in front of Bai Zongyi's tomb by young people, including short swords, toy guns, newspapers, as well as chocolates and lollipops. There was also a bunch of poppies, the Bai family's representative bouquet, parked to the side. After paying her respects, Pu Xiaohan saw that Bai Lian was still standing in front of the tomb. Thinking it was Bai Lian's first visit, she did not disturb her and spoke with the people managing the cemetery instead, asking how often they cleared the offerings. Bai Lian, holding a lit incense stick, looked at the numbers carved on the headstone before speaking. You see, in the end, Qin Yi and the others survived, and I am also doing quite well. Bai Lian took out her phone, which had a photo of Jiang Sui's grave site. After flipping to that photo and contemplating for a long time, she still did not display the picture. I saw the third princess, she's doing quite well too. Jiang Sui was 2 years younger than Bai Zhongyu. When she was younger, due to poor health, she was sent by Emperor Jiang to Bai Li to learn spear fighting for a while, and she had known Bai Zhongyu since childhood. However, after Bai Li died on the battlefield, and Bai Zhongyu went far away to Xiangqing, the two never saw each other again. The night before Jiang Sui was sent off for a diplomatic marriage by Emperor Jiang, Bai Lian secretly climbed into Jiang Sui's palace to ask her if she wanted to escape. She remembered how her father died trapped on the battlefield without reinforcements. She remembered how Bai Zhongyu gave up the pen to join the military and went to Xiangqing. She remembered how the third princess died on the plains, unable to wait for her brother to come back and pacify the grasslands. Only when Xiangqing could no longer hold out, and she was left alone in Xiangqing, could she understand Jiang Sui's thoughts. Jiang Sui did not leave. She had no choice, as it was an imperial command she could not defy. But it was also for the common people. She was Jiang Sui, and she was also the third princess. When Chen Beixian arrived at Bai Zongyi's tomb, wearing a military coat and black leather ankle boots, carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, what she saw was just such a scene. The girl wrapped in a white cloak, holding a cell phone standing in front of Bai Zongyi's tomb. The way she lowered her eyes, she looked extremely similar to the only painting worshipped in the Qin family ancestral shrine. Chen Beixian felt a bit dazed. Chapter 741, 294, How much do you want? Is 100 Jin enough? Second update, _1 adopted daughter? Bai Lian raised an eyebrow. Why is there another one looking to adopt a daughter? Who is it? Bai Lian flicked the ash off her cigarette lazily and turned her head to look at the director of the institute. The director did not conceal the truth. The elder from the Qin family. You probably don't know him. He was sitting in the audience last time watching you, and he's also the old friend whom I mentioned I wanted to introduce to you. The Qin family? Bai Lian propped her hands behind her on the windowsill. Which Qin? Their Qin family. The director's voice lowered as he spoke, with a hint of wariness and a sigh. A family line that has been handed down for thousands of years. Their ancestor is General Qin Yi. Ah, Bai Lian bit on her cigarette, the smile on her face enigmatic. Qin Yi, huh? Her tone was so casual, as if she were talking about the Wangs next door. The director, yes, General Qin Yi, the director slowly explained to Bai Lian, you should think this over carefully. It's not as simple as just writing a song. This is very important for you. Becoming the adopted daughter of Old Master Qin, without saying anything else, with that status, she could walk sideways in Jiangjing without any problems. That won't be necessary. Bai Lian shifted her gaze back inside, looking at the sunroom below, and spoke unhurriedly. I'm not afraid he'll dream about his ancestor coming after him at night. The last sentence was said quietly. The director didn't catch it. What did you say? I said, tell him to save it. Bai Lian stubbed out her cigarette and opened the window a bit wider, her smile nonchalant. Don't overthink it. Jiang Fulai's laboratory. He stood before a large screen, removing the black pen clipped to the lapel of his white lab coat, and used the tip of the pen to point at the engine simulation of the flight vehicle on the screen. The image showed the engine propelling an energy body that diffused in all directions. Standing there, his posture rigid, his eyes, under the glasses, were chilly, his eyelashes slightly lowered. Inside the conference room, all the team members and professors were silent, just quietly watching the big screen. After the presentation, he capped the pen and inside the conference room, most professors discussed the engine they had just seen. Some didn't catch the key points during the meeting and dared not ask Jiang Fulai. Only Hewen followed Jiang Fulai with his notebook in hand. Mr. Jiang, I had them send dinner to the break room just now. Jiang Fulai walked towards the laboratory, clipping the pen back onto his chest and smoothing out any wrinkles on his clothing. Regarding the turbulent chaos system I just mentioned, how much did you understand? I recorded it. Hewen pulled out his voice recorder. Jiang Fulai glanced at him, seemed about to say something, but in the end only acknowledged with a detached and looked away. After returning to Jiangjing, he handed over the dark matter work to the person in charge. He had been involved with the Ma Institute in the research for the Mars rover, and to have a holiday over the New Year, he often stayed until late in the laboratory these days. Hewen silently touched his nose. He wasn't like Jiang Fulai, who could remember every word after hearing it once. Holding the recorder, he went to the external public break room, opened the cupboard to get his phone, and while eating his boxed meal, he sent a message to Bai Lian. Inside, Jiang Fulai was still analyzing data. Next to him, a team member with paper and pen listened and cautiously wrote down the issues mentioned by Jiang Fulai. The cell phone in his pocket lit up. He was the founder of the laboratory and, like an academician at the Ma Institute, could bring his cell phone into the lab. Eat, just 2 words, not even a punctuation mark. Jiang Fulai stared at the 2 words for a long while, silent. Beside him, a team member's hand trembled slightly, risking a glance up at Jiang Fulai's indifferent profile, worried they hadn't just spouted some foolish theory. Then Jiang Fulai spoke up, putting away his pen. Let's stop here. After he finished, he put away his phone and returned to his break room. Inside, the base staff had already set up his meal. His dinner was the same standard meal provided by the base as usual. But apart from the meal, there was also a white cup. He opened it and saw that it contained his medicine. Outside, a team member, holding a meal, sat across from Hewen, still shaken. Damn, that scared the hell out of me. I thought I made a huge mistake with my data, you know. And then he just tells us to go eat. There was even a bit of gentleness. Okay, I admit it's a bit too much to describe young Master Jiang as gentle as spring rain, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Hewen finished the last bite of his meal calmly. I get it, but that's nothing. Monday. The Tongfeng class still had a 4-hour mechanics lecture in the morning. At noon, Bai Lian and Ning Xiao met up with a few others and went to the laboratory. As they arrived at the lab, they found Hu Yu and the others unusually quiet. Hu Yu, sitting to the side, had the teaching assistant gesture to them with a "wait a moment" sign. From inside the lab's office came the faint sound of voices. Bai Lian took off her cloak, not intending to eavesdrop on Zhou Wenqing's conversation with others, but because Zhou Wenqing's voice was somewhat agitated, she ended up overhearing. Director, never mind that we haven't been able to get materials for 6 months, now we have new students here. Zhou Wenqing sounded very angry, and at this time, you want us to hand over research results. Do you think that's reasonable? The voice inside was also helpless. It's not about being reasonable. Your project has been without results for a long time, and there's talk of shutting down your group. I'll sign the contract first, and we'll talk about the rest at the end of the year. I'm not signing any damn contract if we don't even have the materials. What are we supposed to develop? Zhou Wenqing couldn't help but let out a curse. Tang Ming also faintly heard a bit of the conversation. He scratched the back of his head and asked Hu Yu, Sister Hu, what are Zhou's team arguing about? It's about our lab, Hu Yu frowned. We're supposed to be developing semiconductors and superconductors, and a part of it involves industrial materials. Today, the director came over to say we need certain research results by the end of the year. If things go badly, our lab might get handed over to someone else, and it could have a big impact on the teachers too. Tang Ming was taken aback. He had a strange feeling inside, as if wherever he went, something went wrong in that lab. What's Zhou going to do? I don't know. Lu Shixiang put down the data he was holding. For a moment, no one in the office felt like continuing to look at the data. Bai Lian listened in from the side. Looking at the door of the inside office. Inside the office, the director was trying to persuade in a good-natured voice, think positively. If you produce results by the year's end, you'll have a clear path ahead. The position for deputy dean is still open. Think about it, if you succeed, it might be yours. You guys sure know how to put it straightforwardly. Without materials, what results can we have? Can you guarantee enough materials for me? Zhou Wenqing was laughingly angry. I have 4 students under me, and 10 interns. What are you going to have them do? Seeing that Zhou Wenqing could not be swayed, the director lost patience. He simply put down the papers, pulled open the door, and walked out. This is an order from above. You're supposed to sign it no matter what. A bunch of students inside the lab watched the director leave, and the director didn't look at anyone as he left with an upset expression. Bang! The door to the lab was closed. The teaching assistant hurried in to check on Zhou Wenqing. Ding Wenyang, Tang Ming, and the others looked at each other, almost all turning to Bai Lian. What do we do now? Bai Lian took off her cloak without a word, just poured a cup of tea, knocked on the door, and entered Zhou Wenqing's office. Inside the office, Zhou Wenqing's desk was in disarray, and the teaching assistant was comforting him. By student, Zhou Wenqing looked at Bai Lian's calm face and pressed his brow. You're just in time. I think you should talk to Dean Huang and consider moving to another lab. Bai Lian didn't respond to that but instead bent down to place a disposable cup in front of Zhou Wenqing, and said unhurriedly, It's okay. You drink some tea first and calm down. Chapter 742, 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _1 Zhou Wenqing had been researching this project for several years. Most domestic laboratories focused their superconductivity research on nickel, with few studies on palladium. Zhou Wenqing's team's simulated calculation results had already predicted this possibility. But palladium is a precious metal, and the experiment team's annual usage is regulated. Jianghu University's resources have always been among the best in domestic institutions, generously supporting various laboratories. Even palladium is allocated to them each year, but this was far from sufficient for Zhou Wenqing. Every year, he would go to Dean Huang to complain in order to ensure his team members graduated smoothly. However, metals have always been scarce domestically, and resources are limited. Zhou Wenqing knew that even the university president was helpless in this situation. They measured palladium usage by the gram. This was the first time someone had discussed with him using gene caddy. It was akin to an ordinary person hearing about 1,000 gene of gold. Zhou Wenqing doubted his ears. By student, what did you say? Bai Lian's relationship with Wang Yufeng was special, not only because of the life-saving incident that night but also because of Wang's grandmother's companionship and assistance in her later years, and as for Ning Xiao, there was no need to mention. Debts of gratitude are difficult to repay. Palladium purification was no easy task. This was Bai Lian's first time making an inquiry. Wang Yufeng didn't have much stock on hand, so he mobilized warehouses from various locations to procure this quantity for Bai Lian. How much do you approximately need? Bai Lian realized that 100 gene was a bit too much. She gave it some thought and, tapping on her phone, calmly explained, I have an uncle who specializes in this business, and he can invest in our laboratory. Roughly, Zhou Wenqing came back to his senses and said a number he thought was preposterous. 30 gene? Bai Lian nodded. Okay, I'll arrange for you. It should arrive in a few days. Zhou Wenqing watched Bai Lian leaving the office, then picked up the cup in his hand. He silently withdrew the kilograms he intended to say. Bai Lian preferred to describe it in traditional gene, while Zhou Wenqing preferred the scientific gram. 3,000 grams, which was roughly what he applied for from the school every year. The door closed. On the side, the assistant heard the 30 gene from Bai Lian's mouth, which was 30 gene of the experimental material palladium, not 30 gene of cabbage. The office ambience, which had been very tense just a second ago, now took on a fantastical air. The assistant watched Bai Lian's figure. He had heard of Bai Lian through working with Zhou Wenqing for Tongfeng, this year's freshman, good-looking, with exceptional thinking. Chapter 743, 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _2 She immediately opened the mixing software Dean Jian had sent her and put on her headphones. Today Zhou Wenqing didn't have time to oversee them, so she took the opportunity to listen to Dean Jian's tuning. Huyu looked at the software, which went from simulating components to a black and white page that seemed to be an audio page, which she did not recognize. "What is this?" she asked, pointing at Bai Lian's computer. "It's for listening to music," Bai Lian said, seeing that Huyu was also free, and handed her the other headphone. Huyu had her mind on Zhou Wenqing's matters and wasn't in the mood to listen to music. However, since Bai Lian offered it to her, she still took it and casually placed it in her ear. Huyu wasn't much of a fan anymore, although she was somewhat out of it compared to others. Her time was still fragmented during her graduate studies, so she rarely had time to listen to music or watch dramas. The music in the headphones was a classical melody she had never heard before. A very beautiful melody. Just by listening to the music, one could ride across the Jianghu, experiencing joy, enmity, and eventually, a poignant retreat from the world. Huyu had never studied music and her sense of music was so-so. She couldn't make out the details and tilted her head to ask Bai Lian, "What instrument is this? It sounds so good." For a moment, her ears were filled with nothing but music. She momentarily forgot about the major incident that had just happened in the laboratory. "Kong Ho, Xiao, Yang Qin, Eru," Bai Lian said, her pale fingertips tapping on the table, tilting her head slowly as she spoke to Huyu, "and there's a guzheng solo coming up later." Huyu had heard of these instruments, but she did not know what they sounded like. It was the first time Huyu had heard such beautiful music and sound quality. She asked Bai Lian the name of the song. Bai Lian didn't know the name of the song either. This was a new song that emerged spontaneously after Dean Jian had finished composing "Blossoms on the Tree" with her, the lyrics which Bai Lian hadn't written yet, so she didn't know either. She crossed her arms, leaning lazily against the back of the chair, tilting her head. "Senior sister, do you have any thoughts after listening?" "After listening, I feel like sailing the high seas," Huyu sighed lightly, normally indifferent to worldly matters, happy even when called to fill a head count for academics because she could enjoy the tea break. But now she felt a rare sense of sadness. "I don't know if the eldest apprentice brother can graduate next year." Only after coming to do her postgraduate studies did Huyu realize that academia was not so pure either. Once it involved interests, everything became very complicated. "He will," Bai Lian interjected. "Please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 744, 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _3 Their top boss, Wang Yufeng. Not to mention Xiaowu, even Mao Kuan dreaded him. Su Chun quickly set aside what she was busy with and asked Hen Jiwei to check on Su Wenyao's status. Su Wenyao looked at her and asked, "Do you desperately need money?" "I have to make money for the boss." Su Chun picked up her cotton coat and glanced back at her, "But when it comes to money, who doesn't like it?" She left. Su Wenyao needed to remove his four early, as he was considered Bai Lian's brother. Hen Jiwei had heard about him from Xiaowu and was also very polite towards Su Wenyao. He drove back to the Su family mansion after removing the four. He played with Su Siki in the living room for a while. He had just finished his graduate examinations and needed to start preparing the application materials for the follow-up interviews in a couple of days. Old Madame Su spoke with him for a while, her fingers rolling a string of Buddha beads in her hand. She had lately been thriving and was more spirited than ever. "I had your aunt arrange a dinner with a few professors. Have you decided whose research team you want to join?" "I have some thoughts," Su Wenyao said, leaning on a nearby table and slowly twirling a rattledrum, his demeanor relaxed. "If you had gone with the Qi family at that time," old Madame Su began, but didn't finish, recalling something. "Your father is dining with an old classmate tonight. You've heard of his daughter, Su Yejun." Now, the Su family was gaining more influence in Yunshao district, making old Madame Su stand tall and confident in the presence of the Qi family. Qi Shuyun was no longer her only choice. Her sights began to shift towards other eligible young women. Su Wenyao never argued with old Madame Su about such matters, and went upstairs to tidy up in the study. Wenyao, old Madame Su watched his retreating figure as he ascended the stairs. Are you still entangled with that bar girl? Su Wenyao didn't respond to her. Old Madame Su gazed at his departing back, her expression profound. Old Madame, the butler tucked Su Siki in with a blanket. The young master always has his own thoughts. You needn't worry too much about him. Butler Su, the old lady lowered her gaze, her hands idly twisting the Buddha beads. She spoke slowly. Arrange a meeting with that woman for me, 29 Tall Street. The Su family, dinner time. Old Master Su put down his chopsticks and accepted the cup of green tea handed to him by the servant, looking at Su Jueming. I heard there was some unrest in Jianghu today. Su Jueming glanced at Su Juling and Su Nanjing at the dining table and replied without much emotion, Jianghu has been quite lively recently, even old Chen has been stirred up. He stepped out the Chen family's doors 4 times in just a few days. They discussed the latest happenings in Jianghu. What about the Mu family? I heard that their old man has made an appearance, Old Master Su said slowly. Su Jueming didn't pay much attention. What can they accomplish anyway? After dinner, Su Jini walked alongside Su Jueming, inquiring whether they should court favor with the Mu family. I heard the Mu family has ties to the Jiang family. But such rumors, no one dares to spread casually. How could that be? You see, even the Gao family isn't taking it to heart. What connection could the Mu family have with them? Su Jueming thought it was a smokescreen. Mu Qiong is gone, the Mu family poses no threat now. With that time, had rather strengthened communications with the Ming family and the Leng family. In the meantime, Su Juling and the others returned to the courtyard, and he then asked Su Nanjing, what's with your uncle being so secretive? Su Nanjing was acquainted with Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue. He was more in the loop than his father. Today, it seems someone arrived in Jiangjing. Su Nanjing knew only so much. I heard from Sister Beixian that the visitor is a high-ranking member of the Dawson family. The Dawson family, the behind-the-scenes owners of the Azure Dragon Bar and proprietors of the auction house. Who exactly had come, the Chen family hadn't found out yet. But without exception, even the Chen family wanted a partnership with them. No wonder he's being so secretive, Su Juling contemplated. Su Jini and their group are chummy with the Azure Dragon Bar. Beijing is indeed lively recently. What about the Mu family? Regarding this, Su Nanjing said without a change in expression, take the opportunity to have tea with President Mu more often. While the two of them were discussing serious matters, Gao Yen wasn't listening. She was on the side, discussing with the Su family's butler about picking a day with good weather for Bai Lian and Gao Shu to visit the Su family and appreciate the plum blossoms, and to arrange the desserts for the occasion. Wednesday. After morning classes ended, Bai Lian didn't go to the cafeteria to eat, but instead left Jiangjing University. An hour later, at Qinglong Bar. At this time, the bar hadn't opened for business yet. Quite a few people were loitering at the entrance. Bai Lian got out of the car, wearing a black cloak, and entered through the front door. By her side, a young man who wanted to remind her that the bar wasn't open at noon was startled to see a manager-looking person respectfully coming out to welcome Bai Lian. He ended up looking up at the enormous sign of Qinglong Bar, extremely shocked. That's right. Qinglong Bar. Who is this girl? 20 minutes later, Bai Lian came out with a canvas bag in hand. Yinshao district has always been the economic center. Today is Wednesday. Bai Shaoqi and Song Min were in the same class, and they only had classes in the latter half of the afternoon. Chapter 745, 296 Line to Win. Jiang Shijue_1 Bai Lian sat on the chair, passing something with her left hand to the side while her other hand continued to respond to Sun Fei's messages. She did it with ease and casualness. Even though Hu Yu felt it should be quite heavy, she used both hands to receive Bai Lian's canvas bag. But the moment she took hold of it, she underestimated its weight, and the overbearing palladium gold made her involuntarily stumble forward. Bai Lian's head did not lift, yet her hand accurately supported the bag. Senior sister, be careful. Once she steadied herself, Bai Lian raised her eyebrows and eyes, holding her phone, shedding her lethargy. her beautiful brows and eyes revealing a sharp edge. Yu found it somewhat dazzling. After steadying herself, she gripped the bag with both hands and placed it on the table. She unzipped it and asked about the song from yesterday. I couldn't find that song even with a different software. As for the palladium mentioned by Bai Lian, Yu didn't really pay attention. It hasn't been released yet and will take some time. Bai Lian stood up again. Senior sister, you keep these for now, I might need to take another leave this afternoon. She needed to make another trip to Yunshao district. Oh, sure, it's fine, the teachers don't have much going on anyway. While Yu pondered how she got a demo if it hadn't been released yet, she was startled by the contents of the opened bag the next second. Inside were several dozen chicken egg-sized silver-white metal squares. The front was engraved with numbers and letters, 46th Palladium 106. 42. Having dealt with palladium gold for the past 2 years, Yu recognized at a glance what it was. After realizing it, she quickly closed the canvas bag, concealing the palladium gold inside. Palladium gold, this is real. This was the most palladium gold Yu had ever seen in the laboratory at one time. Tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Together, these pieces of palladium gold were more extravagant than gold itself. When their laboratory obtained a kilogram, they treated it as if it were the god of wealth, let alone now with such a large bag. Senior, Yu leaned on the table and looked up to find Bai Lian, but Bai Lian had already left the room. Senior brother, now knowing what was in the bag was palladium, Yu easily lifted the 30 pounds of palladium and handed it to Yu, the senior brother. She earnestly instructed, this is palladium, take good care of it while I go and fetch the teacher back. The dean's office at Huang Institute. Zhou Wenqing was in the midst of a heated debate with the department head. Yu is still an excellent graduate of the physics college. Dean Lin, are you making my 4 students take the fall? Chapter 746, 296. Line to win. Jiang Shijue 2 Palladium gold is precious and rare. Even Jianghu University couldn't gather so much palladium in a short time. Faced with a heap of palladium, Zhou Wenqing and his 4 students didn't know what to say for a moment. Seeing that they hadn't come out for quite a while, Tang Ming politely knocked on the door. Brother Lu, could you take a look at my data? The door opened. Brother Lu looked utterly bewildered. Tang Ming then saw the silvery metal on the table. He didn't pay it much mind and casually asked, Iridium? Iridium. Palladium is several times more expensive than gold, and iridium is even more precious than palladium, a scarce metal in major laboratories and bases alike. Oh, Brother Lu paused, then explained, Junior, this is palladium, not iridium. The junior sister said she's giving it to our lab, but 30 pounds, that's so much. As Brother Lu spoke, the others in the office nodded in agreement. Palladium gold is essentially a precious metal that is priceless on the market. Not to mention iridium. I see, said Tang Ming, scratching the back of his head. Don't you need to conduct experiments? Mao Ji has a lot of these things at home. He raised his hand to show the iridium on his wrist. I also use it to exercise, it's very effective. Brother Lu, in the office, the others also stared at Tang Ming's wrist, speechless even after Tang Ming left with Brother Lu. Even academician Ma wouldn't dare to be so extravagant, would he? The door was closed once more. In the office, Yu turned to Zhou Wenqing. Teacher, can we continue our research now? Zhou Wenqing settled back into his office chair. He had no particular intentions with these new students and certainly didn't expect to improve his performance through them, as his lab members were all quite laid back. But now, he stared at the pile of palladium on the table, absorbed in thought. He knew this year's freshmen were far from ordinary, but what kind of people were they exactly? Bai Lian, Ning Xiao, Tang Ming, not one of their surnames was familiar to him. Where did they get these things that even Jianghu University lacked? Yunshao District. In the precinct, at Sun Fei's office. In half a year, the police station had been purged once, and Sun Fei had been promoted to brigade commander. It's not easy for a woman in any industry, and Sun Fei had to be much more capable than others to stand out among many officers. Her visibility increased after the Bai Lian incident, and with this promotion, her capabilities became even more prominent. Miss Bai, Sun Fei closed the door and handed Bai Lian a cup of tea. Please have a look. I'll be outside if you need anything. Just call me. Thank you. Bai Lian looked up. Thanks Sun Fei, the computer screen's glow falling into her dark pupils, diffusing a lazy, polite, and gentle light. Chapter 747, 296 Line to Win, Zheng Shijue 3 Xiangcheng. After putting down the phone, Chief Physician Lu went to the Medical Affairs Department to check the medical records. The illness of Suan was not common, and that particular case was also a classic one for the hospital. Since the patient had been hospitalized before, their electronic records were preserved. Dr. Lu had reviewed them last year and still had some memory of it. As soon as Bai Lian arrived, Chief Physician Lu sent her the patient's information and details of the illness. A black car stopped in front of the CRFS building. Bai Lian's apricot-colored embroidered shoes landed on a thin layer of snowflakes. Her cold fingertips opened the message Dr. Lu had sent, which contained an image, the patient information found by Dr. Lu, patient name, Ji Xiaorong. Bai Lian put away her phone. Jiang Fulai was still in the underground lab. The temperature was low, so he was wearing a coat covered with a white lab coat. With fingers as pale as his coat, he held a black pen. He was methodical in whatever he did, although sometimes he could be impatient with his team members. After he finished analyzing the data for the day, he reached out to turn off the projector. Everyone in the lab was flipping through their notebooks. Outside the door, the waiting assistant entered as he finished. Young Master Jiang, Mr. Ming is here. Ming Dongheng? Jiang Fulai gave an in response, his face expressionless. He closed his notebook and was about to head inside. Having worked overtime recently, he had finally created the concept drawing for the engine. Hesitantly, the assistant spoke up. Mr. Ming has brought a girl to the top floor lounge. Jiang Fulai's footsteps halted. He looked back, gathered his pen and notebook, and while taking out his mobile phone from his lab coat pocket, he removed his coat and walked out. His emotions were clearly displayed. When did they arrive? He asked in a deep voice. While you were in the meeting, the assistant replied, observing his expression and movements while wondering who the girl Mr. Ming brought could be, and quickly followed him. Jiang Fulai casually carried his white coat and passed through the air-raid shelter door after an iris scan. The black hem of his clothes flowed in a noticeable arc. When he entered the elevator, his light-colored eyes landed on the assistant. Next time she comes, let me know in advance. He didn't specify which she, but the assistant got the hint. It probably wasn't referring to Ming Dongheng. The two reached the first floor. Jiang Fulai's private restroom was at the top of the building, accessible by a separate elevator. He exited the elevator and headed to another one that wasn't open to other people. In the lobby on the first floor, a group of people happened to be passing by. Men and women. Chapter 748, 296 Line to Win, Zheng Shijue 4 Jiang Fulai was indifferent to the songs for Yan Lu, his long and powerful fingers resting on the armrests on both sides of the seat, casually glanced at the computer screen, and then his gaze moved to her face. She wore a celadon-colored top today. Her hair was entirely pinned up with a pin that faintly emitted a purple hue, revealing a pair of dark eyebrows. Her facial features exuded a lazy scholarly air. Come and take a look. Bai Lian didn't bother with Hu Yu's flooding messages, replying with 2 words to Dean Jian. Jiang Fulai leaned over, his lips landing gently yet firmly at the corner of hers. Wait for me a bit, let's go out for dinner. He had casual wear on standby here, grabbed an outfit, and went to the bathroom at the back to shower. Outside. Zheng Shijue leaned on the bar, his eyes on the door to the lounge, casually talking to Ming Dongheng lifting weights nearby. Xiao Ming, is Miss Bai really in there? Answered Ming Dongheng, lifting a dumbbell with one hand, his response light and unaffected. Thank heavens, after more than a year, Zheng Shijue was finally going to meet Bai Lian in person. Everyone from the Jiang family to Gao Shu's group was curious about Bai Lian's existence. Such a person had only appeared once in the Jiang family in 100 years. Without him, the Jiang family might have become as fragmented as the Mu family and gradually faded from Xinjiang district. Jiang Shijue was highly curious about who had tamed a bewitching existence like Jiang Fulai, especially after hearing Ming Dongheng's description. A milk tea with double sugar, was that something Jiang Fulai would bother to pick up with his fingers? Of course, curious as he was, Jiang Shijue had never investigated Bai Lian. Everything he knew came from what he heard from Su Nanjing's and Ming Dongheng's mouths. Will her presence be stronger than Sister Baixuan's? Jiang Shijue straightened his collar. As he was speaking, the door to the lounge was pushed open from the inside. Jiang Shijue quickly dropped his hand, standing tall outside the door, dignified with the authority of Zongxing's executive CEO, hands at his sides, also displaying a polite demeanor. Beside him, Ming Dongheng, who hadn't been paying much attention to Jiang Shijue, also put down his weights. The first to come out was Jiang Fulai. He wore a black coat, speaking softly to the person behind him, holding a checkered scarf in his hand, with a white cloak casually draped over one arm. Clearly, the cloak wasn't his. Jiang Shijue was taken aback at the sight and only then saw the girl behind Jiang Fulai. She was only holding a laptop, wearing a casual celadone top, white buttons done up to her neck, her eyebrows modestly lowered. She wasn't what Jiang Shijue had imagined. Instead, she had a subdued, lazy air. Chapter 749, Jiangjing's Top Circle, taking Wenjixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _1 Mathematics requires a certain talent. If you don't understand a problem, even a teacher's 10 years of explanation would be useless. Aside from that, it also requires a passion and practical skills. Ning Xiao had never received formal tutoring in mathematics, and yet, back in Shangcheng, he was already considered on par with Ren Wanxian and Chen Zhu. Later on, he joined the enhanced class and, with guidance from Jiang Fulai, his long-term foundation and hard work meant that his current research on a project and direction was in no way inferior to Hu Yu. There's no need to mention Bai Lian. She had already understood the concept of integration back in Dayong, where they used B, C, D instead of the simplified numbers of today. Previously, her master had only taught her about measuring land and constructing specific diagrams of riverbanks and water channels. Modern science was a powerful addition to her arsenal. Zhou Wenqing's lab had few students, and the department head had issued an ultimatum. The lab was busy recently. Senior Lu and others were researching palladium experiments, and Hu Yu was earnestly instructing her juniors in data calculation. What Bai Lian gave her were the quantum bits with different parameters that needed to be calculated. Their research focus was on superconductors, inevitably involving the consideration of quantum tunneling related to superconducting quantum computing. This was a crucial part of their project. Hu Yu planned to first familiarize her juniors with this project, but to her surprise, in just a week, Bai Lian had already given her parts of the calculated results. And then there was Ning Xiao. At this moment, Hu Yu was truly wide awake. She turned on her computer to check the material structural model provided by Ning Xiao. One bit after another. Hu Yu did not leave the lab. Instead, she took out her phone to contact Senior Lu. Senior Lu had already showered and was ready to sleep when he received Hu Yu's call. Puzzled, he asked, "Junior sister, you're not asleep yet?" "I can't sleep anymore, senior brother," Hu Yu said spiritedly as she looked at the computer. "Come over and look at the material model Ning Xiao constructed and, also, the quantum parameters estimated by Junior Bai. Come to the lab first and see." Previously, due to the insufficient palladium, the number of quantum bits they captured wasn't stable. The dozy Senior Lu hurriedly grabbed his coat and headed to the lab. At 3 in the morning, Senior Lu and Hu Yu finished reviewing the results achieved by Bai Lian and Ning Xiao over the past week or so. They looked at each other in astonishment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 750, Jiangjing's Top Circle, taking Wenjixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. Too influenced by Tang Ming, he always referred to Ning Xiao as the study god, and the forums all knew this title by now. And indeed, he truly lived up to the name of study god. That's not how you calculate it. Did the original poster not consider the hard requirements? Bai Lian and Ning Xiao are certainly smart, but Gao Yuan is from the Gao family, and lately, I haven't seen Bai Lian and the others much. Looking at Gao Yuan's social media, they have been continuously preparing for this year's Jianghu University Science and Research Contest, getting ready for the boss training camp. Bai Lian should be smarter than Ning Xiao, but why haven't I seen her at the preparation camp? A bit disappointing. According to incomplete statistics, the school only gave Xiangqing 2 spots for the preparation camp. She probably didn't register. People on the forum were arguing noisily, with many being fans of Bai Lian, staunchly supporting her and her group. But most remained rational, questioning whether Zhou Wenqing and his team's project could even continue into the end of the year. Bai Lian was unaware of everything on the forums. For the past week, she had been helping Hu Yu and the others with data modeling, and most of the time, it was Tang Ming and his team who took turns bringing food to the laboratory. After handing over the processed data to Hu Yu, the next evening Bai Lian took her laptop and said to Hu Yu, "Senior sister, Ning Xiao and I won't be coming to the lab these next few days." The new junior didn't need someone to guide her, and she could even help with the core data. Especially since, she could also earn a lot of gold coins. Where could you find such a junior? Hu Yu stopped her discussion with Ding Wenyang, preparing to see Bai Lian off. "Junior sister, you have things to do, and even if you're busy until the end of the semester that's fine. This little bit of research, Ding Wenyang and I will handle it with ease. Junior sister, goodbye." She stood at the entrance of the laboratory building, waiting until Bai Lian was out of sight before she couldn't help but jubilantly return to the lab. She began chatting with Ding Wenyang about the gossips on the forum. "Little Ding, does Ning Xiao really have over 4 million points?" There had been a lot of discussion about Ning Xiao on the forum lately. Many doubted the authenticity of the over 4 million points since even Gao Yuan had only more than 2 million points, and with Ning Xiao himself not confirming it, some suspected it was an upperclassman with the same name. "Yes, what about it?" Ding Wenyang handed the report he had printed out to Hu Yu. Hu Yu, she felt these newcomers had a talent for driving people crazy. Chapter 751, Jiangjing's Top Circle, taking Wen Jixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _3 Bai Lian could only hand over the gift to Jiang Fulai, to pass it on for her. Both were busy, and although they were in the same city of Jiangjing, their opportunities to meet towards the year-end were even fewer than in Xiangqing. Bai Lian picked up the elegant sandalwood box and sat down. The box was a bit heavy, she didn't open it immediately, but talked with Jiang Fulai about the recent laboratory work. Although Zhou Wenqing's lab was busy, the atmosphere was very good. Jiang Fulai, watching her speak energetically about the lab, didn't ask her any further questions about the lab and Ning Xiao. "I'm planning to bring a silk scarf embroidered by my grandfather for Aunt Gao," Bai Lian said while playing with the sandalwood box, telling Jiang Fulai about Gao Yan inviting her to enjoy the plum blossoms. A few days ago, Gao Yan had invited Bai Lian and Gao Shu to the Su family's plum blossom admiring event. Gao Shu was busy with the transfer of responsibilities at the drama theater, and Bai Lian had been in the lab all along, so the plum viewing had not been scheduled to date. "That'll work," Jiang Fulai had heard about this from Bai Lian long ago. "I've had Ming Dongheng prepare other items for you, you can just take them with you when the time comes." In the span of nearly a year, Su Nanjing and Gao Yan had given Bai Lian quite a few gifts. And that included the home tutor that Gao Yan had tried, but failed, to gift her. Bai Lian's fingertips tapped on the sandalwood box. Her phone lit up a few times. It was a message from her racing buddy. "Racing buddy, engagement on the 28th of the 12th lunar month. Racing buddy, racing tonight." Since coming to Jiangjing, Bai Lian seldom went racing, and with the recent lab work, even less so. However, she was somewhat aware of the affairs of the Wen family. Next to her, Jiang Fulai kept talking to her, and without Bai Lian deliberately hiding her phone screen from him, he naturally saw the message flashed up, his face as aloof as ever, His long lashes only slightly drooped. The racetracks in Jianghu are very slick right now. His slender fingertips closed the laptop on the table in front of them, ready to have a serious conversation with her. I know, Bai Lian said nonchalantly, tapping on her phone. I'll bring a friend along. I'm not sure if Aunt Gao would mind. Jiang Fulai raised an eyebrow, slowly saying, if you refrain from dangerous outdoor activities, I could move her plum garden into Shanghai apartment without a problem. Bai Lian sent a somewhat regretful message to her racing buddy. The weather is too dangerous. Would you like to admire the plum blossoms instead? Racing buddy? On the other side of the phone. Chapter 752, Jiangjing's Top Circle, taking Wenjixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _4 Actually, Wenjixia also knew her own situation. She was not originally from Jianghu, and she couldn't fit in with the group of socialites there. Wen Jiwei got along well with those socialites, so they all intentionally or unintentionally isolated her, especially those who had dealings with the Wen family. Wenjixia was very aware that she had been pushed out of the circle by these people from Jianghu. Those people were clearly telling her with their actions not to force herself into a different circle. To enjoy the plum blossoms, the elderly Mrs. Wen looked at her, nodding with a smile. That's also fine. Is it the friend you met with last time? When can you invite her over to our Wen family, so Grandma can meet her too? When Jixia thought about Bai Lian's current dog-like appearance and leaned back, you'll see her on the engagement day. Don't worry, you'll definitely like her. Their chat concluded. When Jixia went back up to her own room. The butler stood behind her like a ghost. Miss, you should still try to fit into this circle as much as you can. The gathering this time is organized by Miss Lang, and that second miss from the Su family will definitely be there. Butler, don't worry. When Jixia kicked open the door to her room, retorting, have a look at the stocks I've had you buying recently, haven't they gone up? The butler paused as he looked at her composed face, naturally happy about the increase in the private funds, unable to fault Wenxixia's abilities. She indeed had her own ideas, otherwise the Yu family wouldn't have taken an interest in her. After a pause, he asked again in a low voice, Miss, are you really going to enjoy the plum blossoms? Or is it street racing? When Jixia, pressing on her phone, ground her teeth and replied to Bai Lian, appreciate, whoever doesn't appreciate is a dog. She closed the door, and the butler stood outside for a while, the smile on his face disappearing as he sighed. After returning downstairs, the old Mrs. Wen also stood at the door in a daze. They both knew that when Jixia had just returned to Jianghu and had not been accepted into many circles, and it was obvious that Wen Jiwei was also excluding her. Who is her friend? The elderly Mrs. Wen whispered softly. An alumnus from Beicheng. Beicheng, huh? Mrs. Wen's eyes dimmed with some regret for not bringing Wen Jixia back earlier, which led to the current situation. Let it be, let her have fun for a while. She won't be free for much longer. The next day. Sunday, 7 o'clock in the morning. The Su family also owned a vast estate. Gao Yan lived in the Tsufeng court located on the south side of the estate. Across an arched bridge was the neighboring plum garden. Chapter 753, 298 Shocks Jixia. What has she done in Xiangcheng? First update, _1 The weekend break meant the morning traffic was light. Su family's butler had been waiting outside early in the morning. At 8:30, he saw a black car approaching from the side and immediately notified Gao Yan that Bai Lian had arrived. He then ordered someone to open the side gate beside Guangliang's main entrance, allowing the car to enter. The car drove all the way to the front courtyard and stopped. Today, hearing that Bai Lian and Gao Shu would visit the Su family, both Su Nanjing and Su Juling had not left home, and Gao Shu had not yet arrived at this point. Upon hearing from the butler that Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai had arrived, Gao Yan put down the small hexagonal rui lantern she was holding. Seeing Gao Yan head outside, Su Juling and Su Nanjing, who were sitting in the front hall, also put down their cups and stood up to walk towards the Chuehua gate. The three of them had just reached the Chuehua gate when the butler led Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai through the arch bridge to come in. Su Juling stood in the center, instantly noticing Jiang Fulai wearing a black over-the-knee coat. His gaze shifted, and his eyes fell on the girl walking to his left. Today, Bai Lian wore a lotus green coat, a shade of deep green that made her fair skin stand out. Her coat was unbuttoned, revealing a white knitted sweater and cream fleece trousers underneath. A loosely tied cream scarf around her neck had partially slipped off her shoulder, blown by the wind. With her coat on, her hair was casually tied back with a silk ribbon, and she wore a white fleece hat. Standing there, she radiated calmness and composure, exuding an elegance similar to the restraint of Chinese blue and white porcelain with deep blue patterns circling cloud-like layers above. Upon seeing Su Juling and Gao Yan, she smiled softly and greeted them gracefully. Su Juling had long heard about Bai Lian countless times from Gao Yan and Su Nanjing. There was no need to mention Su Nanjing, but Gao Yan's fondness for Bai Lian was almost overflowing. Unable to have more children due to health reasons, Gao Yan greatly yearned for a daughter. Su Jini was the only young miss of her generation in the Su family and had been doted on from a young age. Even her conflicts with Su Jueming did not affect Su Juling and Gao Yan's partiality towards her. However, after Bai Lian appeared, the frequently mentioned Jini in Gao Yan's conversations was replaced by Lian. Su Juling had long wished to meet this girl mentioned so often by Su Nanjing and Gao Yan. Now, seeing her for the first time, he understood why Gao Yan liked her so much. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know and report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 754, 298 Shocking Jixia, What has she done in Xiangcheng? First update, _2 in Jiangjing, apart from university classmates, there are no other social circles, and my position in the Wen family is quite awkward. Today is the gathering of the young ladies from Jiangjing's elite circles. Both Miss Ming and Miss Su have been very successful in starting their businesses and have attracted many investors. Without someone to lead the way, it's hard for others in Jiangjing to integrate into this circle. 29 Tall Street, does Wen Jixia know someone from Tall Street? Thinking this, the driver headed to Tall Street, a road with hardly any private cars, with gardens to the rear. Number 29 is a bright and grand gate. Simple and massive, it exudes an imposing aura. The driver parked the car tremulously at the gate, not daring to get out and open the door, merely glancing back. Miss, are you sure this is the place? Wen Jixia had been playing games up until now, finally taking in the destination. She glanced outside, tapped to the main page, and opened WeChat to send a message to Bai Lian. Did you send the wrong address? How did the plum viewing bring us to someone else's home? Just after Wen Jixia sent the message, when she arrived at the gate, a woman known as Lan's mother approached. Are you Miss Wen? I'm here to take you to Tsufeng Court, just call me Lan's mother. Lan's mother, who took care of Gao Yan's daily needs, stood with a straight back, conducting herself in a manner not found in common people. The driver from the Wen family hurriedly got out of the car. Having received a reply, Wen Jixia also got out of the back seat, following Lan's mother with hesitation. The old Su family estate occupies a vast area, with Tsufeng Court located towards the south, at some distance from the main gate. Lan's mother didn't lead Wen Jixia along the main path. Instead, they skirted around via the gallery bridges. They passed Yuansui Pavilion, quickly reaching Tsufeng Court. Tsufeng Court. Gao Shu had just arrived not long ago and was sitting in the front hall with Jiang Fulai and Su Nanjing, warming up. The indoor heating kept the room warm, and through the lattice windows, one could see the warm pavilion outside. Bai Lian and Gao Yan were sitting on the edge of a serpentine railing, beneath which flowed a stream with fish visible beneath the ice-free water. When Lan's mother brought Wen Jixia over, Bai Lian had her arm lazily propped up on the railing, holding a box of fish feed. She was the epitome of leisurely contentment. Upon seeing Wen Jixia, Bai Lian lazily raised her hand in greeting, introducing her to Gao Yan, my friend, Wen Jixia. Today, Wen Jixia wore a satin gown with a white fox fur coat draped over it, showcasing a certain ladylike charm. Chapter 755, 298 Shocking Jixia, What has she done in Xiangqing? First update, _3 As soon as Wen Jixia heard Su Nanjing, she knew where she was. Su third young master, Su second Mississippi. These two were names Wen Jixia often heard within the Wen family, and she was as familiar with them as if they had been thundering in her ears. Upon reflection, the only estate that could have such an expansive land in this area, after counting them on her fingers, was the Su family that the old lady often spoke of. The illustrious and prestigious family in Jianghu which the Wen family and the Yu family both wanted to establish ties with. Wen Jiwei was attending a gathering today that included the Su's second Mississippi. This was also one of the reasons why the old Madam Wen wanted Wen Jiwei to bring Wen Jixia along. But, how was Bai Lian connected to the Su family? From the looks of it, she and Su Nanjing seemed to be quite familiar with each other. What had her friend been doing over the past year? Su third young master, I am Wen Jixia. Despite the shock in her heart, Wen Jixia formally introduced herself. Tang Ming and Pu Xiaohan were casual to a fault, often addressing Su Nanjing as a brother, while Yang Lin was always one to interact solely with Bai Lian and not bother with anyone else, even when facing Jianghu Lai. This was the first of Bai Lian's friends to address him in such a manner. Upon hearing this, Su Nanjing knew right away that Wen Jixia was likely someone from the same circles. He chuckled, Miss Wen can just call me Su third, I am older than you, so you may also call me third brother. If Bai Lian brought her to the Su family and even personally accompanied her to admire the plum blossoms for an entire morning, Su Nanjing figured, not even Jianghu Lai would receive such treatment from Bai Lian. He led the way in front and, listening to Bai Lian speaks to Wen Jixia in an unhurried tone, thought his mother might be able to achieve her goal through indirect means. Bai Lian was unwilling to become her goddaughter, but perhaps someone else could take that place. The dining venue was in a side hall of Cufeng Court. Jianghu Lai was casually chatting with Su Juling. He knew Bai Lian wanted to talk to her friend and hadn't disturbed her all morning. Now, when he saw her coming in with Su Nanjing, he reached out to pull back a chair beside him. Bai Lian approached the chair and introduced her, Wen Jixia, the one I've mentioned to you. She rarely introduced anyone formally. When Director Jian went to Xiangqing, Bai Lian merely gave a casual introduction. Jianghu Lai took a second look at Wen Jixia and stood up. His cold and distinguished nobility was apparent as he greeted Wen Jixia with composure, hello. His voice was cool and somewhat aloof. Chapter 756, The Bustling Jiangjing, Palladium sent by Mao Kun, second update, _1 Kanyu Tower, a renowned old brand establishment in Jiangjing. The desserts are limited in supply, and takeout is not allowed, the main draw being their exquisite nature. It's also not easy to make a reservation. Madam Wen had been there a few times and was deeply impressed with the place. Hearing they were Kanyu Tower's desserts, Madam Wen looked down and examined them closely, squinting her eyes. It was difficult to duplicate Kanyu Tower's desserts, especially such realistic sugar fondant plum blossoms. There weren't many in Jiangjing skilled enough to create them. Madam Wen recognized at a glance that these were indeed Kanyu Tower's desserts, and ones only available to VIP guests at that. Her spirits lifted, she observed the desserts brought back to the Wen family home and immediately sat up straight, go call Xiaohen over. Xiaohen, the driver who had taken Wen Jixia out today. The Su family. Not long after Wen Jixia left, Bai Lian also returned. Su Nanjing followed onto the car, going to check on the apartment's renovations. Su Juling said goodbye to them with Gao Yan, waiting until everyone had left. It was then that he spoke to Gao Yan, unable to restrain his admiration. Is Miss Bai really from Xiangqing? Her manner of speaking and her poise really don't seem like it. Her family is from Beijing City. Gao Yan walked beside him towards the gallery bridge, and hearing him, laughed. She is this year's top scorer in the college entrance examination, even surpassing the one from the Liang family. Su Juling had only just heard of this. Sometimes at dinner parties, he had heard a sentence or two about someone smarter than the Liang family, but like most people, he hadn't paid much attention. Intelligence was one thing, but whether or not someone could stand before them and reach the summit was a completely different matter. Now, hearing Gao Yan's words, he realized that Bai Lian was not the person he had imagined her to be. You know about Shu Shu being elected as dean this time. Gao Yan glanced at Su Juling. Su Juling, often busy with overseas enterprises, was aware of Gao Shu's promotion and had even asked the butler to send a congratulatory gift. The Jiao family is not easy to deal with. Indeed, not easy to deal with. Gao Yan walked onto the gallery bridge, proud to say, Alien helped her a lot this time. Su Juling was even more surprised. No wonder, he kept pace with Gao Yan. I've felt that Jiangjing has been quite lively recently, with people from the Dawson family even coming over. My brother and the others have been inquiring about Wang Yufeng, and I wonder if there has been any news from the Qin family. In the car. After responding to Wen Jixia, Bai Lian reached for her computer. By her side, Zhang Fulai wasn't looking at her messages but was talking to President Huang. I've asked, said President Huang, who normally rested on Sundays and gathered with friends, most of whom were professors in Jiangjing. He stepped aside to answer Zhang Fulai's call. The person who issued the order directly to the institute was General Gao Sun. They wouldn't dare meddle with a big shot like Scholar Ma. But putting pressure on a laboratory center in the physics department of Jiang University was a matter of a few words. Gao Sun. Zhang Fulai opened the desk to make space for Bai Lian's computer. He recalled Gao Sun in his mind. Zhang Fulai didn't care much for the Gao family, but he remembered Gao Sun very well, a cousin of Gao Yi who, due to family connections, had risen quickly at headquarters. Zhang Fulai had a degree of tolerance for the Gao family. But not much, and it was all based on the condition they did not cross a certain line. The proposal you made to the professor, to select one person by the end of the year to join his laboratory, that news couldn't possibly be hidden from the Gao family, said President Huang, unsurprised. Little junior sister, you are also aware of her capabilities. Without stirring up some trouble, how would Gao Yuan have a chance? This makes things difficult for Professor Zhou, being forced to deliver results prematurely, and at the end of the day, it's somewhat related to you. Zhang Fulai tilted his head to look at Bai Lian. Bai Lian had already turned on her computer. She and Ning Xiao hadn't gone to Zhou Wenqing's laboratory today. Hu Yu sent her an email in the morning. It was about 4 pages of newly captured experimental data. Bai Lian was very skilled at processing this kind of data. Even Zhou Wenqing had been marveling these past few days that a student with Bai Lian's talent might not appear even once in 100 years, and his laboratory was lucky to have stumbled upon her. Jiang Fulai knew that Ning Xiao was working on new materials for purification, and the data on Bai Lian's computer seemed unrelated to plasma. He guessed that it must be research from Zhou Wenqing's laboratory. Bai Lian, no matter what she was doing, always seemed calm and composed. Jiang Fulai wasn't quite sure whether Zhou Wenqing was in any trouble, but seeing Bai Lian's demeanor, he reckoned that Zhou Wenqing and Bai Lian could manage without his concern. The problem he needed to resolve was with the Gao family. Jiang Fulai said to Dean Huang at a leisurely pace, I understand. Though his tone remained cool and detached, a trace of danger could always be heard in his voice, causing Su Nanjing, who was in the passenger seat, to reach out and rub the goosebumps on her arm. On the other side of the phone, Dean Huang hung up and, judging from Jiang Fulai's tone, chuckled to himself. Upon arriving at Shanghai apartment, Bai Lian returned to the study in room 303 and continued to process the data. Chapter 757, 300 Newcomers on the Cutting Edge. _1 The remaining palladium weighs about 70 gene. Each piece is the same size, with a silver-white metallic surface, and each has the periodic table form etched onto it. At this moment, he saw the letters Pa. He didn't realize which element it was, only looking at the numbers 46, 106, 42, and guessing it to be a metal from the periodic table. They were laid out very neatly. Su Nanjing reached out and took a piece in his hand, playing with it as he read the word etched below, Palladium, Guardian Deity. The mirror-like reflection made Pu Xiaohan turn her head and squint, recognizing the 2 letters. This is Palladium. Palladium? Su Nanjing and Ming Dongheng had special training in high school. From the first to the third year, after muddling through, he finally broke free from those studies and dove headfirst into the financial industry in college with Jiang Shijue, keeping away from physics and chemistry. He had long left behind satellite angular velocity periods and these chemical elements in his memory. Under the Su family, multiple industries were covered, the most important being heavy industry involvement with Zhongxing Group, which included several state-level labs, and Su Nanjing had been negotiating material resources with exporters from various countries over the last 2 years. Palladium sounded vaguely familiar in his ears, but not as familiar as uranium. What did Bai Lian want so much metal for? Su Nanjing closed the lid, somewhat puzzled. Ming Dongheng came down from upstairs, placing the fruit Ji Heng had asked him to bring on the table. Seeing the paper box that was unwrapped in the middle of the hall, he bent down and deftly moved it outside. Xiao Ming, it's a bit heavy. Su Nanjing stood in front of the box, and as he saw Ming Dongheng moving it, he barely got out the letter for heavy. Ming Dongheng then bent down and picked up the paper box as if it were a feather in his hands. He seemed even more effortless than the young man at the front door earlier. Su Nanjing, he was silent for a moment, then took 2 steps back and called for Pu Xiaohan to go upstairs to look at the newly decorated rooms. Influenced by Bai Lian over the past 6 months, Su Nanjing chose a Chinese-style decor. The pure white ceiling of the great hall featured wooden beams, and the mahogany corner flowers were simple and elegant. The restraint and quality of Chinese style were fully highlighted. She turned around in a circle, then turned back to ask Su Nanjing, "Big brother, can I come over next time to get some materials?" "Sure, Xiaohan, come anytime," Su Nanjing said with his hand in his pocket, casually observing the decor. The code is 6666. Everybody called each other what they pleased. After all, it didn't matter much for seniority. The postgraduate entrance exams had ended.